And that's ironically one of the things that I wanted to bring up, just in general. So, I'm going to pour you a glass of water real quick, just so we can both have water. So. And like I said, I appreciate everything.
Well, I'm kind of okay unless I'm still sitting here at 5 o'clock.
What time is it right now?
12:45.
No, I don't think we're going to be sitting here at 5 o'clock.
Even if we're sitting here at 4 o'clock.
Unless you want to talk for that long. I highly doubt it's going to be. I think that actually looks pretty good. Take a quick look, Nancy. Let me know what you think. So, I'm not in your shot. You're not in my shot. And we got a good wide. It's a little bit bright. I think that light looks consistent. That light looks consistent. And that looks pretty good. Okay, so I can do the introductions later, it doesn't really matter. But welcome everybody to Stefan Speaks Storytelling Through Narrative Life Experiences. This is our third podcast episode. Actually, it's our inaugural podcast on the principal subject of speed skating. Speed skating has been a large part of my life. I've been skating for the better part of 25 years. Today we have a very special guest. We have Nancy Swider-Peltz Sr., four-time Olympian, two-time Olympic gold medal.
Fix it. 2-time world record holder.
Okay, yeah, that's what I meant to say. Okay. So welcome back, everybody. Today we have Nancy Swider-Peltz Sr.
Can't you edit this?
Yeah, I can. I can edit
Make sure
it.
you just get it in somewhere.
I will. Okay. So I'm going to make out like we just came back.
You're not going to make out.
No, we're not doing that. Here's to a good podcast. So everybody, we are back. We are talking with Nancy Swider-Peltz Sr., four-time Olympian, two-time world record holder, and also participated in 8 Olympic trials. Nancy, it is great to have you on the program today, and I really, really appreciate your time with all the technical challenges we've had today.
Thank you, Stefan.
So where do you want to start?
Jacob.
We're going to get this right. Stefan?
Stefan Jacobiak.
Okay, we're going to say it just like we're back in grammar school.
No. Okay.
Stefan?
Yeah.
Stefan.
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 Władek. Władek.
Władek.
Władek. It's my father's name, which is
Yeah.
Walter.
Okay.
Jak.
Joe.
Jak.
Jak.
Skov.
Yeah. Yakskov.
Nyak. Which is Jaconiac.
Yakskovniak.
Just like to drink cognac, you put
Yes.
a J in front of it. Jaconiac.
Jaconiac.
Okay.
Yakskoviak.
Yeah. And Nancy Swider. So your original maiden name is Nancy Swider, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then you got married.
Yep. And I didn't want to do what everybody else does.
So you hyphenated the name?
Yeah. No, the reason why I did hyphenate my name is because I'm very respectful of my father.
Okay.
He was a teacher in the Chicago schools for 37 years, very respected, and I liked the association with my dad. And it was just fun because people would say, "Hey, is Mr. Swider your father?" And it was just so much. I just loved being able to answer that question. I loved hearing the stories about him, and to this day, it's really cool because so many children now of the people he taught at Taft High School in Chicago are now, they've heard of us, or their kids are playing with our kids in sports.
Yeah, because your kids are
Right.
very
And
large
if I-
presence in
right.
football.
And if I did not hyphenate my name, nobody would know that that was my dad. And it's really missing a big part of the fun of life, as well as the fun of knowing stories about my dad. My brothers get more of it just because it's plain Swider, whereas for me,
Okay.
Swider-Peltz, people aren't sure. But my kids, that's some of the reason too why 2 of my kids hyphenate. I wish my other one would too, because
Well, Nancy hyphenates and Jeffrey,
yes,
correct?
Jeffrey and speed skating hyphenates.
Okay.
I wish Johnny would, because being in sports in this area, I think there's a lot of people who would be able to approach him and say, "Hey, is John Swider your grandfather?"
Okay.
And he misses out on that.
So he's the one that's still in college, or is he done with school?
He's in college. He has 2 more years of baseball. He's pretty good. Maybe he'll go on.
Okay. Because I know he was playing baseball and football, right?
Yes.
Okay. And he did dabble in speed skating, from what I remember, correct?
When he was little.
When he was little.
Yeah.
So he just didn't have it, or he just didn't like it.
I think I was hard on him.
Nancy, I don't think you're not hard on anybody.
And,
I mean that in the nicest possible way.
I bet I'm thrilled to death that all 3 of them did not do it, because it's a lot to coach too.
Yeah, because it was funny, because the other day when Darren came over,
Mm-hmm.
Darren's last name is, I forget.
Huang.
Darren came over, and you were coaching Nancy Jr., you were
Yeah.
coaching Petra, you were coaching Brian,
Mm-hmm.
Emery, and Jeffrey, because they were practicing for the team pursuit before they left for Kazakhstan. And then typically you only train 3 people at a time. That's pretty much your max. You had 2 stopwatches on.
Yeah,
Darren was getting coached by Eric Sepperon for a little bit.
Darren, no.
No, I think he ran times for him.
Oh, he might have.
Yeah,
done
he
that.
might have ran.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by he ran
Right.
times for the day. And then, because that's the day I kind of interviewed him a little bit of you guys, and that was that same day.
Okay.
But I thought to myself, there's no way she can do 6.
No,
It's impossible. It's hard to do 3.
Yeah, right.
You know, but the sheer fact that you guys were just doing team pursuit, which
Yeah.
is much more simpler.
Yeah. Well, if I don't have to technically work with people, more people can be in the group. But
Yeah. But I've always known you to only coach 3 people at a time, which has always been Brian,
Jeffrey, and
Jeffrey,
Nancy.
yeah, and Nancy, and then when Bruce Conner was skating, the master skater,
right.
he would come in, but it would always be that core 3
Mm-hmm.
the entire time. So let's kind of go through the history of speed skating with you. How you started. You grew up in Park Ridge. I'm very familiar with the ice rink. I've been there I don't know how many times I've been there, but several times just for hockey and public skating and whatnot. So let's kind of go back and how you got involved with skating. Was it just something that you picked up? Was it in your family? Kind of take us through the history, Nancy.
Well, I grew up south of Devon in Park Ridge, and on Devon Avenue was South Park ice warming house.
Okay.
And there was a park there, and they would flood that every year. And it was the thing to go to the park and skate. In the 60s, that's what people did. So my parents would bring us to the ice rink, the flooded ice rink, only during the cold times. And a lot of people from Park Ridge will remember this, who are in the age of right now, probably 40 to 70, would remember the ice rink at South Park.
It's funny you say that, because that's how I actually started playing hockey.
Mm-hmm.
Was they used to flood just the local area in our park in Bridgeview, and they literally take the water hose. You got firefighters would be out there, flood it, and we'd play pond hockey all night.
Right. Well, it was a fun thing to do, but see, in this day and age, everybody's saving the buck. Everybody's worried about their back, and people.
It's about
are
liability
not,
now. I think that's what it is.
No, I think it's
No?
more financial. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, it's people complaining that that Park District money is going into water that's going to the next week might just melt right into the ground, and people think that it's just not being a good steward of money. But people have to understand too that they put flowers in a town. They do other things to spiff up a town. To invest in people, I think, is great, and to allow people to use skates. And, you don't have skates under the Christmas tree anymore.
No,
because there's
you
not
don't.
many places to go skate, and you have
No.
to pay so much money to go skate. But the local pond was really cool, and people we were a part of that, and I used.
And
my
they would
brother's-
market that at the Park District. They'd say,
Right.
if
It was
you
a
want to
big
go
deal.
skate,
Yeah.
these are the hours.
Yeah, and the warming house, and they had like a potbelly stove in there to keep things warm. And I used my brother's old skates, and so I would just skate.
And how old were you at that point?
Starting around the age of 6 or 7 or 8,
Okay.
but we weren't at the rink that much. I had no idea it was an Olympic sport, but I used my brother's old skates, and I had fun.
Were
with
they
it
figure
because-
skates or hockey?
No,
skates?
they were speed skates. And
Really?
Yeah, they were speed
So
skates.
how did your brother
Yeah.
get speed skates out of all the skates to
I
have?
don't know how that happened, but we probably just picked up skates, used skates at a store.
Okay.
And I think, it might have started with hockey, but then we got speed skates, and then they had local races. the JCs or Kiwanis would sponsor races. And so we were in a race once a year, and I would win because I had speed skates, because they're faster than figure skates.
So you basically were the only one to have speed skates?
The only girl. And that is why, what was really kind of cool about it, though, is that, and this is my story, and this is what excited me.
I don't even know this history. This is what fascinates me.
Well, no, it's fun because this is a kind of the story of my life. Because I had black skates, the girls made fun of me. I have been.
You had black skates?
Yes, and that was not cool. Having
because
white skates
was always a tradition
the girl
with
thing. Yes. And so having the black skates set me apart, made me different. I was ostracized, but I could keep up with the guys, and I would chase the guys, and the guys would chase me, and I liked that. And so that became kind of the signature of my life. I was rejected by the girls, and the guys liked me. And so it was fun. I was just one of the guys. And
because you have this very A-type. I don't know when exactly I met you, but my image of you when I first met you was just you yelling at skaters, to be honest. Because I mean, that's what I would
coaching
see.
Skaters.
Coaching,
yes.
You know, yes. I don't know if you were coaching Brian, whoever you were coaching, but you were just always yelling and screaming.
Now careful. Now remember, yelling and screaming is either anger, or it's because you need to yell because on the ice rink they can't hear you. Correct.
You need lap times.
I am
you were yelling lap
by
times.
my skaters, I'm not loud enough. So careful.
But this is before
anger.
I knew anything about the sport.
Yes.
I didn't know that you were yelling out lap times, or you were so focused on your skaters you wouldn't talk to anybody, because pretty much no one looks at you unless it's your coach for the most part when there's a lot of
people. Well, we've jumped from the beginning of skating to coaching my skaters. Careful.
Okay, so let's back up. Before Brian Hansen was I call Brian Hansen the fourth member of the Hansen family.
Of the Hansen family, the Swider-Peltz family.
No. There's the group, the Hansons, the musical group.
Oh,
the three blonde,
okay,
adoring kids.
Yeah. So, anyways, I used my brother's old skates, and we had races once a year. And it wasn't until I was 12 when my parents took me to the Silver Skates in Chicago. It was
I've heard of the Silver Skates.
Huge competition, and people would go back and look it up. It drew people from around the country to Chicago at Humboldt Park. They would have the yearly Chicago Silver Skates. The award was a pair of silver skates, the blades.
Okay.
If you won. And it was a huge deal. If you won in an age group, you had to move up the next year, even if the age group was 2 years. But if you won, you had to move to the next year. And it was pretty much the cap on what people would ever win would be 5. So it was the cool thing to ever win 5 silver skates, and I won that by my last year. So at what age
were you at this point?
I was 12 when I started.
12.
And the interesting thing is I walked into the warming house with my speed skates for this race. And I thought, I'm going to be the only girl with speed skates because nobody else in the world wears black skates. That's how sheltered I was at the age of 12. I had no idea that any other girl in the world wore black skates, speed skates, and black skates were considered speed skates. And I walked in the warming house and I saw 10 girls lined up in their uniforms and black skates, and I was kind of horrified. It was like,
so they had their version of skin suits on at the point.
Yeah, they were actually wool knitted suits. That's what people wore at that time.
Interesting.
And there are a lot of clubs in the Chicagoland area. There was Lylacia, there was Branislava, there was the Clappity girls. They had I'm failing now. But there was and then the Desplaines Club, Mount Prospect Club, Park Ridge Club, the Evanston Club. So we probably had 10 clubs in the area. Now we're down to Evanston, Park Ridge, Northbrook, and Glen Ellen.
And that's pretty much it.
That's it. And but anyways, we had so many people on each of these clubs that it was extremely competitive, and we would have enough races in the Chicagoland area for every weekend at an outdoor rink. But
this
anyway,
is before even the Pettit was even born, correct?
Pettit was 98. This we're talking about right now is 68. My first, and then a man in our town, Dick Wellbang, who was a national champion, he started a club when I was 12, and that was after the Humboldt, my first silver skates. And somebody said, you know what? Because I did my first silver skates, I think I took second. And they said, hey, you should be a speed skater. And then that year, a man started a club. I joined the club, and that's how it all started in the Park Ridge Speed Skating Club. began in 1968.
So you were
And
the
I was a
founding member.
I was a charter member, and interestingly, in the other members on that the Park Ridge Club, we had a lot at the joining it to start with.
Mhm.
One of them was Bart Connor, who is Bruce Connor's
Yeah, exactly.
brother, and he became.
Did they grow up in Chicago?
They grew up in Niles, and
I didn't know that.
Bart Connor became, as you people know, medalist in the Olympics in
Now
gymnastics.
And now he's married to Nadia Comaneci.
He's married to Nadia Comaneci, and then another guy was David Santee, and he made the 1976-1980 Olympics in figure skating, and then I made the Olympics 4 times in speed skating. So original members went on to the Olympics in 3 different sports. So that's kind of
amazing.
very, very interesting that would happen.
Because people always say, what's in the water in the suburbs of Chicago or Milwaukee for speed skating or just these Olympians?
I think it was more of a speed skating has to be in the north area, and it just happened to be Minnesota, Illinois, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Really was where I think there just happened to be more flooded rinks and interest, and because of the Chicago Silver Skates, people would come to the area. We just had a lot of clubs. For some reason, it just started in this area.
There's a book called Devil in the White City. It's about the Columbia Exposition and World's Fair in Chicago, and they actually have pictures of them doing speed skating in there. And I was shocked that this actually might be. How long has that race been around for?
Silver Skates?
Yeah.
Oh, you'll have to look that up. But
it's been a long time.
It was a long time, a very long time, and they'd had a big history, and that is why how many people, you would never imagine people coming from California for a speed skating race like that. Now you have that nationally when it comes to high stakes, Olympics, World Cup, people will travel that far. This was just a local race, but it was the Chicago Silver Skates, and it was huge.
And was that the biggest race in the country at that time?
I'd probably say so.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I was just surprised how big skating was way back then. Like when I was reading this book, I was just kind of shocked, and then it just kind of all faded away to a point.
Yeah,
so.
and it faded away because of because so many other sports are more easy to get involved in, and also faded away because the organization allowed the disintegration of it because of failure to organize it in a way that would be more attractive or to be, let's say, skater friendly.
Elaborate on that, because was it just more of a cultural thing because you lived in this type of area, meaning lower income versus upper middle class, or just where you happen to grow up was where you happen to be skating? The
question is?
Because you were kind of referred back to, it was...
the organization?
Yeah, that kind of failed. That's it.
Well, first, speed skating went down just because there's so many other sports. And you're going to lose it. And because you can't skate outside and so easily. See, before you could recruit skaters because it was cheaper. You could skate on an outside ice rink. God, just let me talk next. I gotta keep my train of thought.
Yeah, that's it, because that was a really good point. Hold on, my legs are getting too.
So
where did we leave off?
So the
the organization wasn't supporting it.
No, the reason
the weather.
I think a lot of the beginning of losing numbers in our sport had a lot to do with just weather and not having outside ice rinks where people could become interested in the sport, and clubs were outside and it was cheaper because you now have to pay $400 or $500 for an hour for ice session, whereas you could just go to the local rink and you wouldn't have to outside rink and you'd pay nothing or $5 to skate. So I think that was the beginning of it, but in any situation, an organization has to look at what are the factors that will grow their organization or not. And to me, the organization did not combat the problem, even though the problem was nature made because of lack of ice, because of lack of natural ice. But also they needed to realize that you have to be attractive to the public for the sport. And
you mean marketing?
Well, marketing is one thing, but
Okay.
there's not a lot of money in the sport, so I understand
No,
marketing is
no.
not going to be a big deal, but you have to be skater friendly, and you have to, though, raise money and create opportunity for the skaters. And what happened, I can compare it, in the 70s, we used to have 40, 50 people at a 5 o'clock ice session in Park Ridge. And, we just started losing, to now, to have 40 people at an ice session will rarely ever happen. And we used
You
to
mean
have...
for speed skating or just for
speed
public?
for speed skating, yeah. No, it was people were turned down to come to speed skating sessions because they were too crowded.
That's
And,
interesting.
Yeah, this was on some indoor ice. But as far as then the development of it, what happened is that speed skating used to be twofold. You had USS, and that was the higher level side of speed skating in the United States, and then there was the ASAI, or the ASU, Amateur Skating Union. The Amateur Skating Union took care of the development and the clubs, whereas not USS, but I'm beginning to forget myself. Wow. Oh, hold on. Gosh darn it. You speed the umbrella organization for the higher level speed skating. So our speed skating was divided into the Amateur Skating Union and the U.S. organization.
Okay.
And what happened is they decided to decentralize, or whatever you call it, or centralize. I'm not sure what the word would be, but
Maybe be dissolved.
Many years ago, they got rid of the Amateur Skating Union, which was horrible because the development and the promotion of local clubs and local skating then went downhill, and all the emphasis was on developing Olympic athletes because that was the end of the road, and that was what the organization put all their money into. And to this day, what has happened and why I contend that the sport has continued to go down as far as numbers is because of the lack of development on the lowest level. And
which is the club level.
Club level. And all they do right now, money comes from the USO, and people in the United States should know this. You contribute money to the U.S. Olympic Committee, and they then divvy out money to different organizations, hockey, downhill skiing, whatever. Okay. They get a certain amount of money, depending on their success level, and U.S. speed skating, unfortunately, depends on money just from the USOC. They have not been successful in raising their own money to not only give to development, but to give to their higher level athletes. Right now, the money that comes in from the USOC goes to running the organization, mostly, and a little bit goes to the top athletes. Very, very few athletes. Maybe 6 to 7 long trackers max get some money, and same with the short track. And the two highest paid employees at U.S. Speed Skating make more money than is given to the skaters in 1 year.
That's combined, correct?
Combined. And I'm just giving that statistic, and it can be hurtful to some people, and I understand that there's difficulty in raising money for a sport that is not like skiing, where you can advertise something that the public uses. Exactly. So you're going to have some trouble with that. But that is the bottom line in the development of this sport, is to bring in enough money, and we need people who will bring in that money. And right now, all the money comes from the USOC, and the USOC is not happy about that. The USOC wants our organization to raise its own money to supplement what they give. They do not want all the money to be coming from them. Although I do believe that the American public should know that very little money that they contribute, their dollar that they give on their tax form or whatever, wherever it comes from, is so trickled down by the time it gets to the athlete, they'd be very disappointed.
So let's just say out of every dollar, are you saying maybe 10 cents to the dollar goes to the athlete, 20 cents after all the administrative costs to run the organization?
I'd say less than that.
Okay. Now, at one point, was there money coming in the U.S. speed skating back in the day, 15, 20 years ago?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I think that's been the failing of the organization, is to raise a good amount of money to really develop. And here, let's go back to development. What is development? Development is taking your clubs and helping the clubs with any finances or resources they need to keep going, to keep skaters interested. And there just isn't enough money at that level. And what happens is that everybody sees this sport. At the end of the sport is the Olympics. Now people rarely do it recreationally. It's really, just like the inliners come to speed skating because speed skating has the Olympics. Inlining does not.
Yeah, for them it's either you keep on going on the World Cup of inline, might race for a couple more years and then call it a career, or you try to make the Olympic team.
Correct. And that's the attractiveness of speed skating. Now, I'm jumping a little bit here because I'm forgetting my train of thought, but U.S. speed skating has survived, and people will say, what are you complaining for? Because there's so much success in speed skating. Because we always happen to have somebody who wins. And it justifies the existence of the organization to the U.S. Olympic Committee because we bring in enough medals. But those medals are brought in often, and in the past it's come from development, from speed skaters who started in the clubs. It's not that anymore. It's from inliners. And
there's been a mass exodus of,
exactly.
I mean, look at Joey, look at Brittany, look at Heather, Casey.
Right. And that's because, there has not been enough money and development going into the sport of speed skating itself to bring these people up. The U.S. speed skating right now gravitates towards a successful inliner or a successful something. They will not look at the roots and say, hey, we need to take 10 years and develop these people. The people who are in charge are so worried about their medal count that because they have to report to the USOC, ultimately Olympic success.
What was the prediction for SOCHI? What were they predicting?
We're jumping big here. Let's hold on.
Sorry.
Yeah, remember that.
No, I will.
So let's just say what's happened then. I contend that if you kept your good skaters at the club level for more years, what happened years ago when the Amateur Skating Union dissolved, there was an attraction for the skaters to go right to a high level. So they siphoned in short track all the good skaters at the age of 14 out of the clubs. So then the clubs were void of great skaters. And the interesting thing about speed skating is people love to come to clubs because you had great skaters skating at a club session. Now all these people are siphoned off, and the clubs are struggling to attract because there's no money in it, there's no real development in it. Now all the great skaters are all go to Salt Lake City, for training, and there's only a few great ones, relatively speaking. And so you can't develop if you don't have the resources nor the attraction at the club level, to keep developing, and people just quit. There's other sports that are easier for parents to take their kids to or to wade through it or whatever. Parents don't like, to go and the equipment, and there's a lot of downsides to the sport relative to the ease of swimming or basketball or baseball.
It's
or
not
other
a
things
cheap sport to get involved
right,
in.
and it's not a school sport.
Yeah.
So the organization never really did any major studies, and I know that takes money, as to what is happening and how do we keep the growth going. They didn't have to, because somebody always comes out of the woodwork, and now it's more the inliners to bring success to U.S. speed skating, to justify it to the U.S. Olympic Committee, which the U.S. Olympic Committee does understand that there is a problem there, but we have to understand that everybody's looking out for their own back. And so the people in charge at the USOC as well as U.S. Speed Skating are most concerned about who are people who are going to give us medals in the next Olympics. And they will coddle those athletes, and anybody who is not medal potential, they really, I don't know if you want to call it ignore, but very little attention is given to them. Because
they write them off in theory.
Right. So only the people they know can for sure give us a medal, they will coddle. But they're not the ones who need the support. You support some of those skaters who are on their way up, and they will become medal potential. And they do not see that. We have a lot of medal potential, relatively speaking, to the numbers we have, ratio of medal potential of the skaters we have We have them there in our development in speed skating. But the USOC does not understand this as well, and US speed skating will only go to those, will mostly go to the ones who are already good because it's an easy win. And they're only worried about that 4 years. They're not as concerned about the future. Now it is coming more to their attention. There's a little concern for it because they see how much it's dying, but not a lot is being done about it.
Well, if you look at the next coming Olympics next year, there's a lot of athletes that will probably retire because people are getting in their late 20s and their early 30s.
Yeah, we say that, but these people, people are coming back. They retire for a year or two and then they come back. So we will still, and you know what, the average age of a great, successful speed skater used to be 19. It is now probably, I estimate in my survey head that the average age is late 20s now.
I would say because the Dutch are winning strong in their late 20s and early 30s. I mean, look at what the last Olympics.
Yeah, they have professional. It's professional in Holland, and so people can continue doing it as a living. There's many of them are married with children, and
and that's one of the things I want to bring up with you. Like over here, it's an amateur sport. Over there, it's a way of life. I mean, I've been to Heerenveen twice. There's 15,000 screaming Dutch people in orange. Over here, you go to a World Cup, you're lucky if you get 100 people. They would literally take kids in Salt Lake. They literally take kids and bust them in for the World Cups.
Well, it's understandable though, because in Holland, it's next to soccer. It's the national sport. Here in the United States, take football, take basketball,
take all three combined.
People, they're crazy. The Americans are crazy about that. But that's because that's basically our national sports. So unless we are willing to organize speed skating, like
bless you. Bless you.
Unless we are willing to organize speed skating like we do football or basketball, we're of course not going to have that success level. So we understand it's a fact. It's never going to change that speed skating is going to be an attractive sport to the spectator in the United States because we already have our big sports. Holland has soccer and speed skating. So we can't expect it, and we have to understand that there is going to be more. What professional basketball or football teams can compete with the United States? None. Can our speed skaters compete with the Dutch? Well, yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can.
A few of them can. We don't have the numbers because our organization, in my opinion, has not been skater friendly enough, nor raised the money, nor given the resources to that, as it is in government and the world, to that middle person. It's always the best are coddled, the middle person who can be great. We've got a lot who can be great, but they're not supported and they're not resourced.
And the Dutch have a very different system for their private teams that funnel into the national teams. I know Kip Carpenter had the Swift team, which was a developmental team back at about 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
How long did Swift last for?
Probably 4 or 5 years. And it would have kept going, but Kip got another opportunity.
Yeah, Kip went to Holland.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, no, he went to U.S. speed skating for a year and
he
coached,
did.
through SOCHI. And then
that's
he
right.
was
He
done.
did coach
yes,
in Sochi.
He left. Yeah, but there wasn't enough. I mean, he had to help raise his own money. To organize.
I remember that he had to raise his own money,
and they survived, and they possibly would have continued to survive. But that is something. And see, I contend that U.S. speed skating should have helped that situation as well as other situations. But U.S. speed skating put all their attention on the organization and the national team, and they wanted to attract everybody to the national team, and they were not willing to support private coaches like myself or other coaches because, as their motto came to be for a period of time, the best train with the best. But I contend that if you have diversity, you can multiply more from different groups and get more skaters. They were trying to bring everybody to Salt Lake City and the best train with the best. But what happens is that if you have 4 of the best training together, maybe 1 or 2 of them will be the best. You keep those guys separate in different groups, in Milwaukee or wherever, you will multiply from there and they will continue to be the best. But you bring the best together, somebody will be used and somebody will die in that group. You've got to keep, I say, diversified.
That's just how naturally how groups progress in life. I mean, the Navy SEALs are a perfect example. They're very successful in very, very small groups, but the more people, you get into a group, someone's going to fall off. Even the best are going to fall off.
Correct. And somebody gets lost along the way, and somebody becomes the workhorse. And we know that in speed skating. In every team, people don't like to admit it, but somebody's the workhorse. And somebody is brought into the
Someone's
team to be
pulling
the
the
workhorse.
train. It's almost
That's
like
right.
when you're racing an inline race,
Right.
someone's always pulling and someone's always in the back, and
Yeah.
someone tries to break out then.
And professionally in Holland, you know, some of that can be more accepted or tolerated because that person might get, you know, paid more to be the horse. Although,
But they're actually getting paid. They can
yes,
make a career out of
they
it.
can make a career out of it. Although I'm not going to say that that's absolutely what happens right now. But I think most of the workhorses in the sport don't know that they are. They're brought in, they're on the team, and they get used because the person who the coach sees as being the best will be coddled to be the best.
Okay. So here's a question I've always wondered, and I still don't know this answer. There's, 6 or 7 private Dutch teams. I've always wondered what the top people would make, like a Svan Kramer or an Iron Voost, what they would make and what the average skater would make, just in general.
I think the range of money is nothing, just getting expenses paid for.
Okay.
There are professional teams where you only get expenses paid for. I would say then probably the bottom line salaried professional skater is 20, 30,000, and there are quite a few, I'm sure, in the area of 80 to 100,000.
And then there's performance bonus, obviously, correct? Like when you place World Cups or
but
top
then
3.
your top person, and I'm only going to guess, I'm sure is over $1 million.
Okay.
For a top skater who is always producing, and that's only Dutch. The other teams, the Polish teams, Italian teams, they get the government does subsidize, you know, stuff, and they get expenses, resources, and probably a stipend.
I know for a fact that some of the teams in Europe and Asia, they're part of the military.
And they're part of the military.
Yeah, so they're actually
paid by the military.
Exactly. So they get a pension. As long as they're in the military, they get paid something, and they get health care too, and they're part of that system, which works. At least you have something to fall back on, per se. So,
right.
Yeah, it's nothing would ever work like that here, correct? In the States, for a private team.
No, the government can't get involved in sports teams.
Well, because when I've been to Holland twice, it always shocks me that you see these big, huge American brands sponsoring these Dutch teams, but yet there's nothing here for sponsorship. It's very, very hard and challenging to get sponsors.
Because, you'll never get masses of people watching the sport or getting involved in the sport because, aside from those who want to make an Olympic team. And I will go back to some of the development idea. When you have kids joining a club in speed skating, they will have a certain amount of success. But when they first come in, you're very unsuccessful because the ones who are there have developed to an extent, and speed skating is a difficult sport. You're not going to walk into this and walk away with success right away. You've got to stick with it. And if you stick with it for a short period of time, you will notice if you're going to be good or not. People quit big time right away because they realize that if my kid is not going to be that good, that it looks so hopeless, that they quit before they spend too much money because it's expensive.
It takes a long time to develop a speed skater. Me, being a former hockey player, coming into speed skating, I was a very good skater. But coming into speed skating, I had to relearn almost everything. This goes back to a question I asked you earlier. Was there ever a push in the Catholic schools or anything like that to have hockey players transition from hockey into speed skating? Was there anything like that going on? Nothing.
In the public schools, they did have speed skating clubs in the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
Maybe 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. They had speed skating clubs. But no, there's never been any huge development, or it never went off running because it's a very difficult sport, very discouraging if you can't achieve success right away because it involves balance. It involves... Here, let's even make a correlation to ex-Olympians.
Okay.
How many ex-Olympians come back and do it recreationally? Almost nobody, because it's so difficult to get good. I'm talking you down here.
No.
Go ahead.
The only 2 Olympians that I see consistently on the ice are Bonnie Blair and Dave, who you coach, Dave
Yeah.
Kershank,
Yeah.
because their daughter
Yeah.
is now skating.
Yeah.
So,
No, and you're not going to get people because it's so. In order to be good at the level that you skated at the Olympic level, it takes an excessive amount of training and balance, and it's not natural. Therefore, when the ex-Olympians come back to skate, they feel so bad that they get discouraged and they don't even stay around to be recreational anymore. So the older skaters who you see skating started it later, and they have their own motivation and own reason to do what they're doing. Your ex-Olympians do not skate because it's too difficult of a sport, and they do not want to feel uncoordinated, and it just doesn't feel like it used to. Whereas running, you can go out and run. Cycling, you can get on a cycle and cycle. You were a football player, well, not football, I can't relate that one. But other individual sports, it's a little easier because it's more natural. This is such an unnatural sport that people will not come back to it if they were good at one time. You will get masters who start.
Yeah, kind of like myself, who was a hockey player and now I'm a master skater. It is the hardest sport I've ever done in my entire life, by far. I mean, it's a very natural sport. Just putting your back in a certain position now is natural for me. But before, it was the weirdest thing to actually cup your hips and bring your hips in to get that cat back, as they like to call it. Maybe it's because they were at such a high level, they come back and they see how far they have to go to get back even to a basic level.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I'm saying, too.
It's too much work to get back there. You can't walk away from the sport for a couple years and come back and feel good at it. You have to train to feel good to speed skate.
Yeah. The only person I know that came back fairly quickly and did well was Jen Rodriguez when she came back. And wasn't her first World Cup she came back? She took bronze when she came back, when she retired.
Yeah, well, she was out for a year or two.
Yeah, she wasn't gone for that long.
There was another one, Nancy.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Nancy.
I made 3 comebacks.
So let's talk about your daughter. How did she get involved in skating?
I'm talking about Nancy Sr.
Oh, you. Okay, fine.
Sorry, that was don't record that laugh. That wasn't funny.
Here, let me grab some more water. Sunshine.
That's for you.
No, that's yours.
By the way, I would like my own name. You're calling me Sunshine, but you call other people Sunshine too. So I would like my own name.
What do you want?
I don't know. Don't call me what you call other people.
Apple Crisp?
Oh, funny.
Well, just so everyone knows what the joke is, my mother makes apple crisp, and I gave Nancy some apple crisp the other day, and her son Jeffrey, because I had some left over, and I literally called heroin. That stuff is amazing.
I didn't know it was for Jeffrey as well.
No, that was for you.
Just for me.
No. That one was no. Jeffrey got his. Jeffrey did get his apple crisp,
Okay.
but this one was specifically for you because I knew I wanted to have it. That was my con to get you on a program, to be honest.
I know.
My mom actually
Bribe.
made that before they went on a trip.
Briber.
On a cruise. She put it in the freezer and it sat in my car.
This is
and I'm just glad that I actually ran into you that day. It was so funny because when you see me out of the corner of your eye and I had it, you actually kind of almost fell on the ice and were coming at me because you were in the corner talking to, was it Petra?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was talking to Petra. No, you're not talking to Petra. You're talking to, I forgot her name. She's a minister, isn't she? You were talking to Petra or were you talking to somebody else when I gave you that?
Minister.
Huh?
A minister.
What's her name? I can't remember her name. I thought she wasn't, not a minister, but she works in a church. She's on ASE?
Oh, Carolyn Chapp.
Yeah, you were talking to Carolyn, right?
Yeah.
I thought she was,
She works in a church, yeah.
She works in a church.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. For some reason, I thought she was not a minister, but she did something with the church.
Yeah. But, yeah.
That's all. But it was funny because you almost fell on the ice.
Yes, because I knew what I was going to get.
Yeah, and it was funny because you started eating it right away, but It was frozen solid. Literally, it was in my car because it's been like 2 degrees in Milwaukee, literally. So
I hope everybody's interested in apple crisp.
I'll get everybody the recipe and I'll put it online. How about that? Hold on a second. I want to make sure this looks all good. This camera just went off.
Just went off, or it's been off?
No.
It better not have been off.
No, that's just...
We are not redoing anything.
No. That's the reason why we have that, and that's the reason why we have this, and we have a camera up there, too, that's going. So I just want to make sure everything looks good. So how do you think it's going so far?
A little disjointed. You're going to have to do some work. I mean, as far as jumping a little bit.
Yeah, we're kind of jumping all over the place. That's how the last one.
So have fun.
Turned. No. I mean, but that's the natural flow of the conversation. I don't want to sit there and ask you. We thought about that method too, asking you a question and then going, question and going. But then there's a lot more editing in post. If we kept on doing that, we would be here literally all day. So, what did we just leave off on?
We're talking about older skaters and the difficulty of an Olympian coming back, but how that related to really our main train of thought was...
Which was, I think, development of the sport.
Right.
Yeah.
I think this whole thing has been development of the sport, and I've been critical of the development of the sport, and it's just a fact. That's just simply the way it is. The sport has not been developed in the way that it should be, and people will say, well, that's money too. But then you know what? We need to have people in the sport who want to raise the money and who can raise the money. And that's what U.S. Speedskating has said that their board members will do, is to raise the money. And to this point, the board members have not raised the money that is necessary to really support and give the resources to the skaters that is necessary. And skaters quit. This organization has recently hired somebody to recruit skaters, and I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do, but they're missing the boat. The skaters are there. You don't have to pay somebody to recruit hockey players or figure skaters. I don't think that's the way to do it. You need to go into the clubs, raise the money, or you yourself as the recruiter goes into the clubs, finds these skaters, and you know what? Sometimes just a phone call. Sometimes a pat on the parent's back. Sometimes a look in the skater's eyes, and I know this is how I've kept a few skaters going. You say, you know what? You can make it big. And that kid is going to remember that statement, and that statement is gold. It's more than money, because that skater's going to remember, wow, that person was an Olympian or was a world-class skater and said that I can make it big. They will stay with the sport simply because of that, not because of money. And so it's just not being, the organization, I believe, personally, my opinion, is not putting the money into the thing that will develop the sport, and that is making sure that the skaters who are in the clubs, money is already going into them from their parents and from the club, and these are the ones who can be the Olympians one day, instead of trying to cherry pick from another sport and try to develop them. It's not the way to do it. And the organization thinks that they're going to continue getting inliners, which is fine. You can still continue to get inliners. But they're just relying on the fact that you've got the development of the inliner for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and all of a sudden they're going to switch over to speedskating and be great.
No,
fine, you could. Well, some do, but you know what? What about the speed skater who's already been on ice, who can be great? And I have no clue. This is the biggest conundrum, I believe, that exists in the sport. Why U.S. Speedskating does not see in the clubs all the talent we need for the future. It's there, period. And they are turning over the wrong stone of trying to go elsewhere to find these athletes. And then you need to have people who will raise money. How do you raise money? In this sport, you're not going to just get different companies to just give money to you arbitrarily. You know what? You've got to use your relationships. Relationships is everything to develop money. I have had to raise money for my team, and it has been through friends and people who have known my husband and I through the years, and they trust us. And it's relationship, and the organization does not get
it's something as simple as a handshake. And
exactly. Or, like I said, the phone call to the skater, hey, we need you, we want you, you're good. Jeffrey has never gotten that call. And I would say that alone is a money-free, is a no-brainer recruitment tactic. And then you need people who will get sponsorship for the organization through their personal relationships. But the people they bring in, the board members or whomever, I don't know, but they're not using their personal relationships of people to their friends or companies they know, where the company will support the organization because they know you as a board member and they trust you and know you will use the money correctly. That's the only way to do it in this day and age, because you're not going to cherry pick a company and think they're going to support you as Speedskating for one reason. Will they do that?
No.
They're only going to do it if they know you and trust you and believe you're of value because they know you.
And that brings me to a point that we had early ice this year, because you raised personally, I believe, $60,000, correct?
Yeah, don't record that one.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. I have been able to bring in $40,000 a year in the last couple of years from the family of a man in Park Ridge who loved the sport. He was a speed skater himself. Mm-hmm. He loved the sport. His son and granddaughter were involved in the sport, and he just wanted to continue to support it. So through his foundation, they have continued to give money to the Pettit Center in Milwaukee, and because of my relationship with them and vice versa, they have continued to give that. So but it stems from his love of the sport and then my relationship and asking for such.
Okay, so like I said, we'll cut that first part of that out.
Right.
So that's basically how we got it.
I want to be really careful with that, because I'm not sure, this is off record, I'm not sure they want the publicity of that, because then people will come to them and ask money they don't need that.
They're going to be getting hit up for money left and right.
So that's why I was evasive in the name, but I think it's really cool, and you can use this if you want. But this family is a very generous family. They want to continue the legacy of their father and what he would want to have happen by putting money into a sport that he was crazy about. Okay. And I really wish his granddaughter had continued, because she was very talented.
But that's the reason why, because we got ice early by, I believe it was almost a month, right?
Money has gone into opening the ice rink earlier, so the Olympic level athletes could be skating sooner, although everybody else benefited from it. But also it goes into other things. They're trying to get a timing system going, and then to have the Olympic trials here next year. So they're
shooting for Olympic trials here.
Oh yeah. But more money needs to be raised. So we have got to get the money in there, because at the last in a couple months, if not enough money has come in, there is the fear that it would be brought back out to Salt Lake City, but we want to have it in Milwaukee.
So that's a good point. I was actually wondering, when was the last time we had U.S. Olympic trials here? Because from what I remember, the last couple of U.S. Olympic trials have always been in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
When was the last time we even had a World Cup?
Well, they'll never have a World Cup anymore, because it is not big enough, can't accommodate the situation. And then the Pettit Center does not have enough money to possibly lose, because you have to take down the hockey rinks. You can't have the hockey program or the figure skating program. So there's too much revenue loss. So they will not have a big competition.
And I heard the other thing is we're not a certified rink or oval with timing. Yeah. That's the other thing.
Well, the timing is going to be in where by Olympic trials, we can't even have the Olympic trials unless the timing system is there.
That's what I was told.
So the timing system will be in, and some of the money that's been raised that this family in Park Ridge has given to the Pettit Center, it is going towards the things that are necessary in order to have the Olympic trials.
Because I was actually shocked when I was in Salt Lake for work, because I was there on the ice for 2 weeks, and I was shocked that we got ice this early, because typically it's in mid to late September, if I remember, and we had it. I would think it was early August or mid-August we had ice.
We had it mid-August, and this next year we might get it at the beginning of August.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the earliest you've ever seen ice at the Pettit?
August 1st. I think we have had it either.
That's for an Olympic year?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But you know what? We have also found, I think August 1st is necessary, but we have found too that skating too early isn't always the best thing. Doing cross training is very beneficial. Yeah.
Because Jeffrey, your son Jeffrey Swider-Peltz, he did a lot of inlining over the summer with Team Rainbow, which is another iconic team that a lot of the Olympians trained with them and came over to Iceton too.
Yeah. No, Team Rainbow has been absolutely wonderful to
And I skated
Jeffrey
with
and
Team
Nancy.
Rainbow 10 years
yeah.
ago. Yeah.
Oh,
I
really?
mean, yeah, I skated 1 year with Kale in the gang.
Yeah, Kale has done so much, giving of himself to develop this club.
Kale to me is I mean, if I believe correctly, Rainbow is the oldest club in the U.S., right?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, his father started that roller rink on the north side, right?
Yeah.
Rainbow.
Yeah.
And then Kale's always been this stoic individual to me. He represents inline.
Yeah.
Everywhere across the world, people know him. He can go to any race. Like, you can walk in any oval in the world, and people will instantly recognize you. Same thing with Kale. Kale is instantly recognized for inline.
No, he's a good guy. And Jeffrey and Nancy my daughter Nancy has been skating with Nancy this last year, Jeffrey for a couple years now. And Jeffrey has helped the club too, because he has brought attention to them because of his level of skating. But they have also been a club for him and have been an encouragement to him and support of him. And just it's been a community for him as well. So there's been a lot of mutual symbiosis here of what kind.
And then in the last, I believe it's maybe been 6 or 7 years now that we now have an inline race in Chicago, which is great for Jeffrey and for Nancy because they can bring attention and possible sponsors into the sport. You know, I don't know how big the race is, but I know inline as a whole has been descending over the years. I think when I was in St. Paul, Minneapolis, for those races, it was huge, and then the numbers just keep on getting less.
Yeah, inlining has dropped off because there is no Olympics in it. And people enter sports, yes, recreationally, but the younger ones enter it for an ultimate purpose. And if there is no professional or Olympics, it becomes distracting. I think for a period of time, the reason why inlining was growing and getting bigger was because there was the hope that it would make it to the Olympics. And when it was denied, I think it was at 2 Olympics ago, it killed it.
Yeah, and then they're still giving them some type of glimmer of hope to grasp onto now.
Yeah.
They're saying it might possibly make it in. But I remember way back in the day when I met Casey and I think it was Joey Cheeks, not Joey Mantilla, in the very first inline race I ever seen. I had no idea what speed skating was. This was when Team Rollerblade was around. This one when inline skating, people were actually getting paid when Derek got paid to be on Team Rollerblade. And that's how the first inliners kind of came over. Casey, because what I understand, Casey is the first inliner to come over.
And, we need to stop here because I should wear my other clothes.
Okay, that's
We've
fine.
forgotten. It's been too long. I don't know how many more questions you have. Because I would rather be wearing the other.
No. I agree. I want to go to the bathroom too and kind of stretch my legs.
Oh, I would rather. Darn it. Because I think at my age, the believability of things that I say has to do with how you appear. And
No, I
appear
definitely.
Olympic, it's better. But it's been too long. What more questions we got? You know what you need to do? You need to kind of go back and forth wearing this then and wearing the Olympic stuff.
Okay. What are you going to throw on?
My TSP shirt with this coat.
Okay.
It's colorful too. And, it can be talked about as far as, because people relate to
The nostalgia.
nostalgia, but the also Miracle on Ice.
Yeah.
That's what Miracle on Ice had.
It's always funny to me when you see skaters outside of the oval because we look so different, like in normal clothes.
I don't think there's some people who never see me in normal clothes.
I mean, people actually see me like I'm wearing a suit or something, or a picture of me in a suit.
I don't know if we want to start with, we talk about Team Swider-Peltz shirt. And then I can put my coat on. I can.
Whatever you want to do, Nancy.
I should have brought Jeffrey's bandanas. I should have brought his.
Well, that's something he can talk about.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Remember, I'm going to interview your daughter. I'm going to interview him.
Okay.
Interview Petra. I mean, I'd like to do everybody individually.
I'm not sure where Petra's going on this because she just recently or today is talking to Clyber because she doesn't think that her lap is fast enough. I mean, she's an idiot. She's an idiot. She has found a home with us. She's gotten 2 personal best times of her life. She's got her fastest lap she's ever done.
Didn't she PB in Calgary?
Yes. And so now, because I got a little pissed at her because she hasn't paid me, and then she just expects to drive with us on the bus and take care of her everywhere we go. So I didn't talk to her on the way home, and finally she said, why, what's wrong? And I go, I'm just because I feel taken advantage of. What is it? I just keep giving.
It sounds like she found a great home, especially with Nancy, with a training partner.
She's absolutely, this is one I think people would screw loose. Her father has wanted, her father passed away, but he has wanted her to train with us. And here she goes, selfish. She wants a faster last lap. Well, you can't get a faster last lap and a faster first lap. You can't get a faster first and a faster last lap in 2.5 months. That's all I've been working with you. These are these selfish, bratty kids. So should I do the Team Swider-Peltz or just wear it underneath? Do you want to ask about it or no?
You want to start off on that? Team Swider-Peltz? Because this can be like a segment break now,
Yeah, well, it would just be a short time with this shirt, and then a short time, and then I can put this on, and we can talk about Miracle on Ice too. But I'm sure my arms don't look that great, so let's not have too much.
Mine don't look great either, so legs feel like rocks right now from training.
I wish mine did.
Well, you can come back.
Oh, no, I have no concern, no desire. I'm because of all the problems and the struggles and my kids being frustrated. I'm probably done in a year. I'm not even sure I'm going to come back and help people because I've been so taken advantage of. Not enough appreciation for the work gone in.
Well, what? Okay, so let's just say a skater, whether it's Brian
Are you taping this now?
Everything's taped regardless. Okay. But I mean, this is not going to make the air, I'm saying. Okay. So let's just say a skater wanted to come train with you. Any skater, let's just say somebody from Holland wanted to come over and train with you. What would it cost?
Oh, well, it all depends on the person. Here's my situation. I know if you're a person who doesn't have a lot of money, who is really contributing to the group, I wouldn't charge for a little while, but I would then expect the person to come up with something. Mm-hmm. Now, if a person has money coming from Europe, I would charge in the area of $1,500 a month.
That's what I kind of thought, because I thought somebody said that Jeff was like $800 or $900 a month charging.
Jeff Kleiber?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea.
No, because
it's not enough. The trouble is that, and then so I have some people right now who think that they can just waltz in and just benefit from you, and they don't pay, or they think that $500 a month is a lot of money. And this is what hurts our sport: is if you think that somebody is going to give to you their whole life experience just because it's a training program that takes maybe half an hour to write. It's been years of experience to be able to write that. It's just like a doctor. Why do people pay for a doctor? It's years of training and experience. You're not paying for just that day, their time.
No, you're paid for your knowledge overall.
Exactly.
That's why
people in the sport don't do that. They don't respect you enough to do that. So you're going to lose people, or you're not going to attract people to be coaches because they aren't treated respectfully. And respect is paying you what you're worth. Or showing you. Years ago, people coached for nothing because they did it at nighttime as a hobby after
they have full-time jobs. Yeah.
Correct. This is I don't make money, and so this is something that it's a sign of respect for the knowledge and experience and the success that you've had. And when you don't get paid, it's a slap in the face. And the sport does not understand this. So not only I talked about the lack of development as far as the athlete is concerned, the lack of development as far as a coach is concerned. There is no development, really. Now you have your level 1, 2, 3, 4, and I shouldn't say there's no development. There is a push in the last 10 years to get your level 1, 2, 3, 4 because...
they actually I actually got my level 1, but I never completed the stuff I needed to complete, but I was like, why don't you get your coaching? I'm like, look, I can't even skate, why am I going to coach? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
not
like...
And they do that. They even a person who has level 1 today... To me, I think it is too easy. But yet, in my situation, they're saying that you have to have a level 1, 2, or 3, and they're not taking any grandfathering in, or the fact that I have coached so many Olympians, I have coached so many camps, But they take none of that you've done, and they've boiled it down to what they say are your stipulations to get a level 3 or 4. At my experience level.
I kind of find that as a joke.
And they deny that of somebody like myself. There's very few people like me, if any. I'm probably the most educated in school, the most experienced, the most Olympic teams. Speech communications. But
Me too.
Or the teaching certification. So it's the teaching aspect, as well as the fact that I was raised in a teaching family. That has had more than my education. It's my experiences in life that have gotten to me where I've gotten and given me the credentials to be a coach. Yet the organization slams the hammer down and says that you need to get a level 3. But I understand it to an extent, but I'm in a different category than other people. And you don't disrespectfully treat somebody who has achieved what I've achieved, not only educationally, but experience in the sport, and then just the intelligence to put it all together.
Have you had offers to go to Europe?
I've had offers with the Norwegian team, the Canadian team.
Okay.
And I could solicit more, and I could coach in another country for sure.
So let's just say, I don't know if this is going to make it to air or not. Because this is really good what we're doing right now, just talking about the coaching and everything. If you were to get a job, let's just say in Holland, or in Norway, or in any of the Nordic countries, would it be minimum $100,000 you'd be paid, for example? $50,000?
You know what? I'm not going to even have a very good guess on that. I know Norway is not going to be as high as Holland.
Yeah, obviously.
And it depends on who the skaters are. If I would by chance get some really good skaters in Holland, I'm sure I'd be paid over $100,000.
Yeah, that's what I kind of
figured. In Norway,
I'm
thinking near at 50, 60. It's not going to. It depends on how big the sport is and how much money is comes from the government to the sport.
Yeah, because who coached short track for Germany or?
That's Mike Corman.
Yeah, he went over to Germany and coached for a couple of years, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think he made decent money.
But it's going to be more money than what he can make, obviously, here in the U.S.,
Probably.
right? Yeah.
Yes, you'll make more money overseas.
Yeah,
as a coach than you would make.
Ryan went to Japan for a year?
Yeah, I have no idea what he made.
But I have no idea what he made either.
Yeah, but see, people need to understand. It's just like in the business world. If you're qualified and you do a good job, you got to be paid, because you're going to lose that person. And the more you pay a good coach, the more you're going to attract other coaches. And U.S. Speed Skating has not figured that out yet. That your coaches should get paid, I believe, as much as your executive director, because you can never walk away from coaching. And this is why there is a high turnover.
There needs to be an incentive too. It seems like there's almost no financial incentive.
No, there is none. And the only reason why we have the coaches is because they just want to do it. And I give all the national team coaches who have ever gone through have never been paid what they are worth. But that the organization does not see the payment of coaches as a valuable thing. I personally think that the way, aside from development on the lower level, on the grassroots level for athletes, the organization does not see that a great coach is their number one asset is to have many great coaches. Because we fail in the area of coaches truly knowing physiologically or being educated in that area, as well as relationship-wise, as well as just having the art of coaching. The art of coaching is like being an artist. It is not just anybody or an ex-Olympian who can walk off and do it. It is a special thing, and it needs to get paid well, and then other skaters who leave the sport would come back and be coaches if it was somewhat profitable.
That's almost going back to what you were saying about the American ex-Olympians. I don't see any of them staying in the sport. They all moved on in different chapters.
The main reason, I'm going to just say this, why they have moved on is because they were not treated well enough by the sport. And they will not come back and support it. And the organization needs to accept the fact that it's been a failure on the organization's part to keep the alumni interested and happy. Okay. And for years, now recently, they've developed an alumni association that I don't think has been successful yet. But if you call your ex-Olympians or your World Cup skaters or world-class skaters and you ask them about their feelings about the sport, they will talk about their friends. They will talk about the fact that they love the sport, but they will have nothing. almost nothing good to say about the organization, except for the few who have received money from funding that only goes to making an Olympic team or a World Cup team, and that's only like 7 skaters a year.
Okay, so
those people are not going to the top ones of those 7, maybe 4, will not badmouth the organization because they've gotten something. And it's not because you shouldn't love something just because you get something back, but it's a fact of life that you can't keep going in something where you're getting no kudos, no money, no support, no resources, no anything. The organization needs to coddle in a good way, not cheapish way, the skaters who are just below the ones who are getting everything. And we have lost so many skaters to college, which is not a loss, but they quit the sport because there's nothing to help them get through.
It's like, for a lot, I've read several studies on this, that when Olympians retire and they don't have a degree, they're completely lost because they go into the business world and they try to get a real job and they have absolutely no marketable skill.
Right.
You know, I think your daughter and Jeffrey are going to be very lucky that, you know, Jeffrey's almost done. Nancy does have a degree, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey will in 1 semester.
Yeah. But they're at a few. How many ex-Olympians literally started their lives over or at 30 or at 25 and they don't have a degree? And they're working as a personal trainer somewhere or trying to work off their credentials per se. So this is a question I've always wondered too. When you get a stipend from U.S. Speedskating, let's just say you make national team or you make the World Cup team, depending, it's all based on times. And hold on a second. So I know it's all based on times to a point. So Jeffrey made the World Cup team on the team. No, I'm sorry.
Team Pursuit.
Team Pursuit. He lost in the 5,000. I actually have pictures on my laptop, which you will see. But let's just say he were to make the team straight up for the 1,500 or for the 5,000 or the 500. Doesn't matter which distance. What's the type of money an athlete could be looking at that maybe wants to get into the sport?
If you make the World Cup team, you get your way paid to the competition.
So travel, airfare, and hotel are paid for.
The only way for you to receive any money, and it does not come from U.S. Speedskating because U.S. Speedskating has no money. Period. They get money
from the ISU.
It comes from the U.S. Olympic Committee, and it's only for if you make the single distance world championships. After you've made the World Cup, you make it to the single distance world championships and you're top 75%. That's it. If you do not make it to the single distance out of the World Cup and you do not get top 75% at the single distance, you make nothing. And the lowest amount of money you'll make, I think, is like $8,000. What the heck is $8,000?
After taxes, it's nothing.
So
you're lucky that that's $4,000.
So you only have maybe 4 skaters who make any amount of money that can help them survive.
Okay.
As a person in life.
So let's just say Jeffrey's on the World Cup and he skates to 15 and he gets third in A group or gets second or first. Does he get it?
Yeah, he'll make at least $12,000 for the next year, but that's not a lot of money.
That's just for the year. I mean, does it each individual race that he wins?
No.
Also, you don't get any bonuses. Nothing.
No, only unless you're top 3, then you'll get some money. But I think the max amount of money that you're going to get from the U.S. Olympic Committee for having skated in World Cup competitions is $25,000.
Okay, and that's doing fantastic on the World Cup.
Yeah, top 3.
Top 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Top 75%. We're talking $8,000, maybe $12,000. And then you will get, now if you're top 3, you will get some race money from the particular World Cup race.
So if you go to single distances and do well, get second or third or first.
You'll make some money there.
You'll make some.
1,000, 5,000, 10,000, I don't know. I think the max amount of money that a skater, I think the United States has made from World Cup races and then single distance world championships, together with any funding from USOC, which would be max $25,000 a year.
Let's just max everything out.
Everything out would maybe be
it wins almost every race.
$60,000.
That's it.
Yeah.
you take Shawnee Davis, Shawnee Davis is Shawnee.
Yeah.
He's 2-time Olympic gold medalist. He is the Michael Jordan of our sport, as I like to say. He should be making millions of dollars a year if he was a professional basketball player, professional something else. But he's not. Well,
I shouldn't take anything away from the fact that if you as an individual have gotten your own personal sponsors, you will make more money.
No, I know he's done that.
But
that's what any skater at that level is getting personal sponsors too.
Right. You have to if you get personal, and I would say that maybe 2 to 3 of our top skaters have personal sponsors that give anything significant above a couple $1,000.
Well, my point was just this, that you have Shawnee Davis, who is one of the best in the world, one of the most iconic skaters ever, and he makes nowhere near what he's potentially worth in another sport. That's the example. He's sitting there.
But that's understandable. Just like one of the coaches of one of the best Dutch teams said after Sochi, he said, "Well, you guys are stupid in the United States. What do you think? This is almost our national sport. We throw money into this. We're going to get more success. You guys put no money into your sport. Why do you expect to get a lot of success?" He said, "You're crazy. It's just like comparing speed skating in Holland to football in the United States.
Yeah.
You don't have the interest in it, and you don't have the money in it. So don't expect to get
Look
the
at
results."
how much money these high schools are putting into football. I mean, these stadiums are beautiful.
Development.
Exactly.
Now, U.S. speed skating is never going to have that. I'm not saying that U.S. speed skating should come anywhere close to our national sports. That's not the issue. But U.S. speed skating has failed in the development of speed skating at the grassroots and has failed at raising money themselves to support the athletes, not only at the top, but the middle guy, who we have so many great, I believe we have a lot of great athletes in our sport, and they quit because there aren't the resources.
And these are the athletes at the club level that are starting to make the transition.
Not club level, but also we're talking about just below, or the World Cup skater who isn't the top 75%.
Okay.
That person, and U.S. Speed Skating does not see this, that person can become great. But they aren't putting the time and effort and resources into that person. We have 2 national team coaches. How the heck do you think you're going to have 2 national team coaches who are going to bring success to all the skaters that we have? They're crazy. I didn't finish saying that earlier. If we would develop the coaches, we should have many national team coaches who have to do more education, or the education is brought to them, and they develop skaters not just in one group. We have just one sprint team and one all-around team. It's a fact of life. You don't multiply with one thing. You got to multiply with 2 things. Let's get funny here. And 3 things and 4 things and 5 things. You can multiply more success. You can't with one team.
It's funny you say that, because one of the coaches, Desley, very, very successful. I've met her multiple times. I've seen her at the World Cups. But a lot of these coaches overseas, they actually have degrees in coaching.
Yeah. Well, that's what U.S. Speed Skating is trying to do that.
It just shocked me that you can actually get a degree in coaching, because that's unheard of in the United States.
Yeah. And I think the United States needs to realize that the sport world is as significant, as important as education, as business. Look at how much they're paying these high school. In theory, these college coaches. Yeah, and a lot of them are not as educated as they should be, though. You need some education to be a coach. The trouble in the United States is that, I'm saying the Dutch do it right. The trouble in the United States is they think that you can walk out of a sport or a college and be a great coach. It takes time and experience. Now, I am pushing for myself as far as getting grandfathered in, or having a level degree level coaching. 3, 2. But I have gotten mine in just my self-education of coaching skating more than any other. Let me explain myself there. I made 2 Olympic teams, and then I started coaching. And then I made another Olympic team and kept coaching. And then I made another Olympic team and kept coaching.
And then that's when you made 4 Olympic teams.
4 Olympic teams. And then I continued and made 4 more Olympic trials, all the while coaching. So I used first of all, my education from school, teaching, and my upbringing. I have 2 parents who work teachers. And I made Olympic teams and coached myself with my dad and my brother all along. And then using my skating experience on coaching others and myself to more Olympic teams and more Olympic trials. So I had the practicum, the lab of skating myself, coaching others, and coaching myself. And this was done 8 times back and forth.
You still kept on refining the process.
Refining the process and learning from not only myself, because I could feel it, and I skated with my skaters. I felt what they were feeling. There is literally nobody in the sport, Holland, anywhere, who's done what I've done. And then been a mother and raised 3 kids at the same time.
And they're great kids.
All right.
So what can we take from the Dutch that would, in theory, potentially could work here, or what has U.S. speed skating done to maybe
have more coaches?
Have more coaches,
and the organization has to raise the cash, and you have to. It's a fact of life that if we're going to compete as a sport in this world, we have to compete against other sports for people. And if you aren't providing something more attractive than another sport, you're not going to get anywhere. But our sport keeps depending on 2 to 3 people who win medals, and then we have the most medal count of any Winter Olympic sport, so we're great. We don't have to do anything. We got 3 great skaters. That's good enough. And they keep hoping and praying for those 3, and they keep coming. And we keep getting them. But what's happening on the bottom? There's no development. You got a few here, and there's none here, and
we've also had several coaches from Europe come over to U.S. speed skating, and then they always migrate back.
They go back, and so U.S. speed skating has not wanted to invest in a European coach because they typically don't stay. But that's because of the organization. You should listen to what the European coaches who have come here, what they say about the organization.
What do they say?
The organization has killed them. As far as our organization is not organized enough for them, not coaching friendly enough, does not pay them enough, does not respect them enough. And just like an athlete, or just like anything in any sport, why is Google successful? I'm going to business. Because I think they treat their employees quite well.
They treat their employees great.
And any organization, in this day and age that is successful, generally speaking,
it's the culture that keeps them there. Like Apple's a great example.
Exactly.
People love the culture.
The culture of speed skating, the athletes themselves want to have a great culture, and there's a certain amount of behind-the-scenes culture that the kids have and the skaters have amongst themselves, but it's not enough to keep them going because financially you can't survive. It's a fact of life. You can't keep giving money and survive if you don't even have the money. So this, to me, has not been addressed enough, but the organization, the people in the office get paid enough to survive. They get a few skaters who are successful, and that's it. I think you wipe out the entire, sorry people, employees. You keep one person on staff.
Slate, right?
One person on staff. You get 10 coaches. Guarantee you will be successful in 5 years. Your success will be out of this world. Forget, you make your phone calls. You get your people to you. If you're a good leader, you've got people who believe in you, trust you, they'll give you money. You'll probably get more money as being the only leader because the people will feel sorry for you. They'll give you money. You got 10 coaches. All of a sudden you're going to have success, and then people are going to give money. That's my opinion.
So for the same amount of skaters, let's say U.S. speed skating has for our national team, how many coaches do we have compared to the Dutch for that same amount of athletes? So say we have 15 people on a national team. How many Dutch coaches are there for 15 people?
Well, okay, that's our national team. For a professional team, they probably have 6 to 7, and they have one coach, or 1 to 3 coaches. I'm sorry, 1 to 3 coaches, but they have a doctor and masseuse.
Yeah, they have everything.
Other help. We have 1 trainer and 2 coaches for how many would we say on the national team? Well, we probably long track we probably have 10 to 12
that are actual national team.
Yeah, and then
And what's on the short track side? Do you even know?
Probably similar or something like that. So that's not a lot. I mean, that's an okay percentage. I would still say 3 for that national team, but the national team should be bigger. So you should have 30 skaters who are being supported by coaches and a trainer and some type of stipend.
Okay.
And then you'll develop, because people will say, hey, 30 people, and I can make enough, not to say make money, but everything's taken care of for me. I can maybe do this. If I just work a little bit during the week, I can make my own spending money, but at least everything else is taken care of.
That's true.
And that's all you need to do. It's really, really not that big, but you need the coaches. We don't need staff people. People in the staff are just going to say, you're stupid, Nancy. But you know what? We need the coaches, because the coaches create the success.
So what's 3 things that U.S. Speedskating, for example, could take from the Dutch right now to even start the process of being just a little bit more successful?
Well, we need the numbers, so you need the grassroots. That will take some time. You need the programs at the rinks. You need the coaches. And you need to raise money from personal relationships.
Okay.
And you have to be skater friendly and coach friendly.
Because we did have some developmental programs here in Milwaukee. We have some private teams. We have ASE. Then we have my team, which is competitive as racing.
But you have individuals who are paying a high price to create that organization, and it does not come from U.S. Speedskating.
Okay.
Nothing at Milwaukee is U.S. Speedskating.
No, but it was funny because I was sitting there thinking to myself, with the last Olympics, how many people actually made the Olympic team that trained in Milwaukee? Was it almost 50-50?
Yeah, I think
right around there. It might have been 60-40.
Right. And generally speaking, you have more of the distance skaters in Milwaukee because it's harder to train in altitude distance.
Okay. So, did you ever think about making? Did you ever thinking about moving the family to Salt Lake to train?
No. I live in Wheaton. My husband works at Wheaton College. It is a great atmosphere. I would never leave it. So I drive back and forth from Milwaukee to Wheaton. But but I will, probably after this Olympics, it might be over for me. And if the organization
that's going to be sad, because I'm going to miss seeing you at the Oval.
If the organization had been really good and coddled and given and helped resources wise, you could stick around. But why do it when you're continually, and people say that I fight the organization? It's not that I fight the organization. It's that the organization doesn't do, in my opinion, what they are capable of doing. There is so much, the simplest thing. If they could do the simplest thing, I'd give them a lot of credit. That's picking up the phone and calling their athletes and saying, don't quit. We need you. We love you. You're doing great. No money.
Because you're not doing this for money, obviously.
You know what? You would keep a lot of skaters with just that. And if that can't be done, nothing bigger is going to be done. Why think, okay, I'm talking about raising big money. Yeah, you should raise big money. But you can't even they're not doing the little thing of coddling the skater by giving them the phone call and the time of day. And that is necessary.
Now, you think that's what... Okay, maybe back up real quick here. What do you think the big cultural difference is between Salt Lake and Milwaukee as far as attitude?
You know what? I don't have a great experience with that. This is what I've heard from people, that in Milwaukee it's more skater friendly. People feel more welcome.
It's a very Midwest Chicago type of a feel, I think.
Yeah, I'm not a person who really generalizes about nature and personality and area, like, the East Coast is a certain way and the Midwest a certain way. I mean, it depends on the people you meet. I just think that in Milwaukee you have a more down-to-earth mentality, because out in Salt Lake City you have, quote, the national team, and there's a certain elitism that goes on with that, and then an assumption, and so they sometimes wrongly get labeled, but rightly get labeled with an attitude that is not real welcoming to people who are not the best. But it depends on the person you're dealing with. I think there's a lot of great people in Salt Lake, and a lot that I think need to change. And I think the organization needs to change. I think the people in the office don't come down and get to know the skaters. I know that the people at the top have never talked to some of the skaters who are there today, and that is absolutely out of this world nuts.
You mean just the administrators?
The administrators should know and talk to the athletes as much as they can. And if they aren't in Milwaukee, they should come to Milwaukee and get to know the skaters who are there. This causes the people to say they care. And when you have the heart involved, you will have development if you don't have money.
Because you have to
it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer.
It's funny because when I came back from being on tour for I don't know how many months, just a simple hi from like Emery going, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
You know, seeing other people going, I haven't seen you in a while, how you been? That actually would really cheer me up.
Yeah.
Or just saying, hey, how's your day going? I seen you, working on starts the other day. You look really good. Something as tiny as that.
Yeah, right.
Can carry you for the season.
Yeah, right.
I remember when we were in Calgary for the World Cup the week before, and you see me skating because I ended up going up there, and you're like, wow, you're really putting down some power. And I still remember that. But that made me really happy. But it's something as little as that. It doesn't matter if I'm just a master skater or a national team. That can really carry you throughout the day because it's a very independent sport too at the same time.
And I would probably, it sounds bad, but I would probably be more that way if I felt a certain amount of freedom and support instead of always being preoccupied with I got to raise the money or how are we going to do this or we got to achieve the success or we're not going to get the money. It's like the stress.
You can't focus on being a coach.
Exactly. And if you could focus on being the coach and know that your things are being taken care of, you can also then be more giving and outgoing. I mean, I am very giving and outgoing when I can be, but I could be so much more, but it's so difficult. And I get mad at myself for not being as good as I could be. Or I get mad at myself for fighting. But I fight for justice. My fight is never just to fight. It's when something is taken away, something is not given credit for, when people aren't treated fairly, I go crazy. I am just a person who will, many times I have supported somebody I don't even know because they have told me about a situation that's not fair and then I go crazy on it because I want to at least use my name or my position to fight for something that person should have. But down the road, the persona of Nancy is, here she comes, she's going to fight. And I understand that maybe that could have been done a different way. But you know what? When you have been doing this since, fighting for justice since 1980, you're going to be a little jaded because something should have happened since then. And I will go back to Mrs. Hayden, Eric Hayden's mother. When I was skating in 76, I said that was going to be it. I was probably going to go into coaching. I was going to try to make the sport better. And I said, I'm going to do this. I know I can do this. I really know I can. She said, joke. She said, the organization will never change and you're spinning your wheels. Don't waste your time. She even said to not waste your time staying in the sport. Mrs. Hayden.
Has a sport changed? How much has a sport changed or been stagnant for the last 15, 20 years, maybe even 30 from the 70s as far as the administration?
I don't know, stagnant. Well, like I said, everything is dependent on development. And when the organization was centralized, not decentralized, but centralized to just one entity, coordinating, in charge of everything, they let go of the development of the little guy. And that's what caused the downward slippery slope, in addition to the fact that it is just not a sport that is real attractive because of the, as we've already discussed, the lack of money and resources.
Okay.
And ice time.
Yeah, ice is it's a very expensive sport. I don't think people really understand how expensive the sport is with skates and with skin suits and training and, everything. So.
And you haven't asked about my t-shirt.
Nancy, would you like to elaborate on your beautiful t-shirt that is available online?
Shoot. I don't have the right one on. This one says independent. When Jeffrey Jr. Designed this shirt, he wanted it to be retro. It's TSP, Team Swider-Peltz. He wrote independent at first because, we were an independent private club team. And then it's now the t-shirt, you can go online and get it. It says Team Swider-Peltz.
That's the one I'm used to seeing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I wear it a lot because I respect Jeff's artistic abilities. But he's gone into doing other stuff, and you're going to interview him, and he makes bandanas and sweatshirts and stuff. It's kind of cool. trying to supplement with a little cash to survive. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and then he also does some GoPro stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to put on this jacket I decided to bring in. Should I talk about this or you want to ask about it?
Do you want to put it on and take a quick break and then come back?
No.
Okay, fantastic.
Let's just
okay, so let's tell us about this jacket. It's the 1980 Olympics. It's the iconic Miracle on Ice.
Yeah, this was
Lake Placid.
This is the coat that was given to the 1980 Winter Olympic team, and for those people who are have watched Miracle on Ice, you will recognize this coat as the one that the hockey team wore. I pull it out every once in a while because it's probably the more recognizable of all the jackets that I've had over 4 Olympic teams.
It is. It looks almost brand new, Nancy.
Well, I don't tend to wear it around. It's although retro is cool today. Jeffrey likes to create retro designs.
Has he thought about maybe trying to make this jacket come back, or maybe design a jacket around this one?
It's an idea. But anyways, I decided to bring this and wear it for a little bit of the interview because it's always fun to bring in items that are of interest instead of just
so tell us some stories about the 80 Olympics.
Well,
what kind of races you were in, for example? The whole Miracle on Ice.
The Miracle on Ice story that of course there were not cell phones then, and I just remember being on the street. Lake Placid was one street, and I was at the far end from the hockey arena, and everybody knew that the Russians were playing the Americans. It was Cold War, and everything that they showed on the Miracle on Ice movie. I mean, the facial expressions, I'm sure were not going on, but of course there was still within each individual, the Russians and the Americans, there was absolutely within inside the Russian skaters and the American skaters, the Cold War feel, because the Russians should win because they were professional, and the Americans were a hodgepodge of athletes put together for 6 months.
Yeah.
And for them to even think of winning was absolutely out of this world. And so when they made it that far to compete.
Did you go to any of the games or no?
No. It was the talk of Lake Placid, this match, and so there was not a way, since we didn't have cell phones, for when when it ended. Yeah, there was television, and I don't know if it was live or not. But
I think it was on a tape delay, from what I remember.
Okay, so for the people on the street, everybody was just. I mean, the street was literally jammed. I mean, you would stand for half a mile, and you had people on all sides of you standing in the streets waiting for the results or just waiting, whatever. And I could see when they won, I was at one end, and all of a sudden there was commotion. And the commotion came in a wave down the street. As everybody talked to each other, as it came all the way down from the hockey arena, just a wave of yelling and screaming and going crazy because, of course, there were more Americans in the street than anybody.
Of course. But you didn't know at that point, you weren't at the actual.
No.
Okay.
No, I was down the street. But I have a memory of this wave of insanity that the Americans won. And it was the biggest upset. And that's why, you know what, it was considered, some years ago when they had the voting on the most significant athletic event.
Okay, we're good.
There was, every year, I think it's every year they have like the team or the individual athletic event of the year, but then they had the one of the century.
I believe it was.
And it was the hockey team.
Yeah.
Now, they got that not just because of the event itself, but because of the emotions between the Americans and the Russians.
It was the political climate of what was going on in the world.
Right. And so that's why it was so incredible.
I've watched so many documentaries on it.
Yeah.
So
really? Okay. So I'm not saying anything
No.
interesting.
It was the political climate of what was going on in the world with the Cold War, of us versus them mentality. The hockey game just happened to be, I think, the catalyst that really brought everybody together as a country and a nation.
Right. And you know what? Some of the emotions in the movie of the Russians or the coach looking at the American, I think, you know what? I think down inside a little bit of that was going on. A little bit of that unbelievable, oh my God.
So what was the reality versus what actually, the reality versus the movie that you actually seen when you were in Lake Placid?
I don't know. I can't say that, but I think the reality of the incredible thought that the Americans could beat the Russians.
Was there any chatter in the beginning of the Olympics? Because they didn't I believe they played them at Madison Square Garden before the Olympics started, and they got slaughtered by them.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of talk about it. Yeah, I think there was. But some of that talk was not given the thought because of the belief that it was probably impossible. Okay. So I think all the things that happened afterwards were way more significant because all the reality was there.
Because literally they were just a bunch of college kids that came together, and at that point in time, all the Russians were professionals.
Right. And nothing like that I think will ever happen again. But here's the sad thing about it, though. Eric Heiden won 5 gold medals and did something that was an incredible athletic feat. That was probably, relatively speaking, well, not probably, was way more athletically impressive than the hockey team beating. I think that there's some luck that goes on. There's some other things that go on with a hockey team beating another hockey team. But for one individual to win 5 gold medals in races that I would compare to the 100-meter dash to the 10K run,
or even a marathon, per se.
Who's ever going to do that?
Exactly.
Nobody.
So a sprinter is not built like a marathoner.
Right. And so Eric probably would have gotten a lot more attention had the Miracle on Ice not happened. But that was 2 incredible athletic events happening in one Olympics. And and the movie was made about Miracle on Ice, and people know about Eric, although Eric never really exploited his situation.
Yeah. When Eric did start winning... which race did he win first? Was it the 500, then 1,000,
I don't
15?
know. I will not know.
But was there any talk that he was going to get 2 or 3 gold medals?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And actually, I would say that the men's team, internationally, everybody just was going for second place.
Okay.
That was the talk. So there was a certain expectation that Eric could do it. But we always talk about, Eric could do it. But then when he does it, it's like, oh my God, he did do it. I don't think there was really the belief that he could get every one of them, but there was talk that it was possible. And that is why, that's why this is the gold uniform here this wasn't the one he wore, this was mine.
Yeah.
But that's why this was pulled out, I think a couple weeks before the Olympics, because it was made with the so the gold was because of Eric. It was not this color.
That's why they came up with this color?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this was for Eric Heiden because of the expectation that he would win many gold medals. How many, they didn't know. But this is for Eric, the gold.
I had no idea.
Yeah. I don't know if people know that or not. But anyways. So, they're the jacket. And do you want to talk about these guys?
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's... So these are skates. Well, I'm going to have Nancy explain.
Wow, what a great statement. These are skates. Oh my gosh, please. No, let's start with this one, okay? Come on. This is the first indoor offset skate made by Plannert. This was in 1960.
And explain who that individual is.
Mr. Plannert. No, he went. Anyways, Mr. Plannert worked with the idea that initially the blade was set in the middle, but because in short track you have to take such tight turns, they started setting the blade off. This was the first skate, this model, and this was like a very unusual skate.
And that's a Viking?
No, this is a Plannert.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Mr. Plannert. So you can see that the blade is way offset, but you couldn't move it. See, in this day and age, you can move your blades up, down, back, forth, wherever. this was so radical at the time because it was offset.
And this was what year?
This was 1970.
Okay.
And then it's long track speed skating. This was the 70s, 80s. The Viking skate didn't change much from 70s, 80s into the early 90s. And this is the conventional skate that Bonnie Blair, Dan Jansen, skated on and won their medals on. Fixed blade. Okay. And then you've got, this was in the 90s. This was still the boot, as you can see. It's almost the same.
Yeah, the boot is...
Everything's the same. But then they made the clap. And the clap was for the purpose of when you push, and at the end of your push, the blade will open up and stay on the ice longer and give you a little more time on the ice. And that correlates into time in your race. And I would say it can take up to a second off a lap maybe, but more importantly, it doesn't fatigue you as fast as your last lap relative to what it used to be on the conventional skate. Your last lap is faster than it used to be.
So when you first heard of clap skates,
Yeah.
did you think this concept was going to catch on, or it was a fad?
A lot of people knew about it sooner. I didn't know about it until the spring of 97.
I'm assuming it was somebody from Holland that...
Oh yeah, and they'd been developing. It had been around and tried many times for like 20 years.
Really?
But nobody was willing to take a risk on a big competition. So it just didn't go anywhere. Well, a bunch of juniors were using it in Norway that spring, or that summer. And there was some success that had happened in the springtime. And all of a sudden, people started going crazy in the summertime. And by the fall, almost everybody who could make the 1998 Olympic team had the clap skate because it was proving to be too successful. There were a few skaters who did not switch over, and they did not win medals, but they were great skaters. And then there were those skaters who switched over and did not do well. Generally speaking, a skater who switched over and did not do well was for the most part a great skater. And it was really sad because a lot of great skaters never made it then after that, because you know what? The clap skate helps the skater who isn't as technically efficient. And so a lot of skaters who were not as good got better because of it, and some of the technically efficient ones, it just threw them off because they were better with their conventional skate. So a lot of weird stuff happened in 98, and people wanted to consider them, illegal to use for that Olympics because not everybody had access to them or could get them right away. So they considered it an unfair advantage, but they went with it because they couldn't stop it. Once the skate was out, everybody went crazy and got it except for a few, and then a few who didn't have time to adjust, and then those who thought that they could be better on the conventional skate.
So did you skate any of your Olympics on...
No. My last Olympics was 88.
Okay.
But I right away got it, and I skated the Olympic trials. I was on mine for 3 or 4 months before the Olympic trials. I acclimated to them within 30 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that fast?
Yeah. Some people never did.
Okay.
Just, it doesn't work with some people.
Well, we're going to leave off on that. We're going to take a little break, and we're going to come back and talk about some of your skin suit and some of your other jackets from the other Olympics. How does that sound?
All right. But a very short break, because I don't need a break.
I know you don't. I do. I'm old.
What's your problem?
I got to go to the bathroom.
Oh my gosh, you men.
I know.
Oh.
And I got to... Okay, let's take a little break. The good thing is we're actually covering a lot of what I had in mind, because I just knew what was going to happen. We're covering a lot of the things that I had in mind.
Make sure you know what the list is, because let's make this the last one. Last break. You can't pee anymore.
No, I can go forever. Just I've been
Whatever.
drinking a lot of water.
Like I said, I'm not going to stay here till 4 o'clock.
I know you're not staying until 4 o'clock.
Butthead. Let's get in close! Not bad.
What's that?
I was 24 it's like.
It's fine.
Well, it was looser before. That's not too. It's not too bad.
I'm gonna throw the heat on for a little bit
Why?
before the next segment.
Are you cold? What's wrong with you?
No, I can't have that going because of the audio. So it's a very sensitive mic. So when you hear like ambient sounds like that, it'll pick everything up.
Okay.
So
You know what you're doing next here?
do you know what I'm doing?
Yeah. Do you know what are we doing next? What's the subject?
I think that we should start talking about some of the other skin suits.
Well, you're the director here, man. You figure it out. Are we bringing it here, or are we walking over there?
That's what I was thinking right now.
It should probably be brought here.
Yeah. So
Okay.
what we can literally just do is have you, I can bring them all here.
Yep. They're sitting on the floor, and we just
Yeah.
pick them up.
Exactly. Because everything's done. And then I'll take pictures of everything individually later. And then I'm also going to bring this as the last thing. We can kind of talk about it. We can maybe clear the table.
What about will you take out these pictures yourself and take? You want to take that later or what?
No, I'm going to do all that later when
Right.
you're gone. Because that's going to take a long time because I got to sit there and frame everything up the right way. This is a jacket you were just, this is a different jacket, right, Nancy?
That's the 1976 here. Look at the picture here, because this is how you can relate it. This is what I was wearing here.
See,
That's what we were all wearing here.
I love this old school photography stuff. Because it's so existing.
76, and you know what? You'll probably get a lot of hits if you put a first gen on it.
No, I will.
Almost embarrassing.
No. Meaning, everything's going to go on the website, StefanSkates.com. Nancy, this is. I think
this is kind of weird, though. I mean, okay.
I'm just curious. How many conversations have you had with them? Just
I
eye and by and.
Yeah. I had nothing deep, but I remember saying at that time, this guy's weird.
He just didn't seem. I don't know. Just something seemed off.
Okay, I don't think we're gonna keep. This was another 1984 skin. We don't need that. That's gonna complicate things for you. So I'll keep my bags here, and
So I haven't
you want
really-
me to keep these skates here?
We didn't talk about
These
that.
are my skates. I'm taking those.
Oh, the one thing that I did want to bring up, we could maybe come back with the everyday skates now. Maybe you can go over my skates a little bit, how everything's changed, like the carbon fiber.
Well, then that should be next because.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's next, and we'll
Okay.
get into your outfits. That's what I'm saying. Because that was the next natural train, the next natural progression.
I did have Prince Albert in there too, holding Nancy, and someone stole the picture. I know it was stolen. Well, it was in our house, and all of a
Stole it
sudden,
from your house?
yeah, because I had it there for 10 years in one spot, and all of a sudden it's gone.
So I think this is going to be the last thing we talk about.
Do you want to talk about that, or do you just want to take pictures of that and talk?
No, I
about it?
want you to talk about this too. This
All
will
right.
be the last thing we talk about
All right.
because I actually have to physically bring it over. That's all. Now here's something that we really haven't talked about. When I first, I think you were on the ice and I kind of told you about what I wanted to do, right? With maybe like a video podcast or something about skating.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I just hope you do it. That's the one thing I kind of took away from that. It's like, because you told me so many people have talked about doing something to raise awareness for the sport or just anything on the sport. The fact that we're here, what's your thought? I'm just curious about the entire process. I mean, this is still getting refined, trust me.
Yeah, well, it's nothing to do with skating. It's just going to be a general comment. Generally speaking, in life, people say stuff and they never do it. So
That's true
I
because
think it's great that that somebody had a thought whether or not this is going to be successful, whether it's going to do what you want it to do, whether it's going to help the sport.
we just
is
don't
the
know.
point that you did it.
We don't know anything yet. We've changed a lot from the first to the second, and you're the third, but you're actually the first talent I've had, besides my boss. But I mean, trust me, I wanted everything to be perfect. And I had to scramble at the last second. But the whole idea of this podcast was to see what can I do this alone, regardless of anybody here. Is it possible? Yes, but we have to play with angles and lighting. But the good thing is I can do it. I don't have a choice right now. I literally, kind of like on the ice, either got to do it. You don't have to like it. You just have to do it. How many times have we been on the ice and training and you just honestly feel like complete garbage and shit, but you still got to pump it out and get a race in or whatever.
Yeah.
So this is exciting. What do you want to talk about first? I mean, just the fact that you're here, Nancy. Yeah. I mean, you have no idea how much I really envy you. My mom and my dad have seen me skate once in my entire life, and I always kind of looked at you as, I'm just gonna say it, as like the skate mother. Because they don't know what it's like to be on the ice. I love to skate. You love to skate. That's one reason why I wanted to have you in the program too. Is just because we love to skate. People don't understand what it's like to skate, but
I probably actually love to coach more. But the love of the coaching has been very much diminished and destroyed because
of what's been going on.
Of what goes on in the organization, being a private coach. Okay. As a private coach, I have had to just fight for a voice and a say and being able to be at competitions. I remember back in the 90s, they would not even let me on the ice, U.S. Speedskating for
Wasn't there that story they weren't going to let you on the ice at that one of those Olympics? Which Olympics? Because you didn't have credentials or something?
Well, that was Vancouver.
Yeah, that's what it was,
2010,
Vancouver.
And I had gotten an accreditation through Cinquata, who was the president of the International Skating Union, and he had got me my credential to get in. And in the process, particulars, and they know who they are from U.S. Speedskating, did not like the fact that I was able to find my way. It was just crazy for them to think I couldn't, because I was been around the sport more than any of them. And I have people I know, and not illegally, but out of respect, they got me a credential. But U.S. Speedskating, out of their selfishness, took the credential away from me. Literally took it away because they did not want me to get in. And there are those coaches on the 2000 team who, after the 2010 Olympics, said to the organization that if they would ever have to treat private coaches like that ever again, they would never work for the organization. It is unconscionable that U.S. Speedskating did what they did to not only me, but Kip Carpenter, in disallowing us to have access.
Same thing happened to Kip?
Well, different. He never got a credential, but he had to get in through tickets himself, and he was often on the street with his suitcase and his sharpening equipment and what he needed as a coach, and left outside the rink. It was just...
I had no idea this happened to Kip.
For the organization to do what they did to us was just like, there's no downside to helping us help our skaters.
But this goes back to what you said earlier. It's the relationships you have and the handshakes.
Yeah,
I mean, that relationship...
Right. But this is why the organization loses its alumni, for things like that. I mean, most other people would have been done by then. That's why Kip's gone. Kip's was tired of dealing with that kind of stuff.
And now he lives in Holland with his wife, and he's got two kids
he's
now.
coaching, and he's got a great gig there. And
Is he assistant coach to short track national team, or
I believe so.
Yeah.
So it's really it's a shame the things that have been done by the organization to individual coaches, because they wanted to have a certain exclusivity and control of the top skaters, and saw private coaches as interfering with the goal of them to have the best skate with the best.
So here's a unique question. If we didn't have all these private coaches, and you know who they are because we all know them, it's a very small group. That's the vacuum cleaner, everybody, if you guys hear that in the background. Do you think U.S. would be putting out this many medals over the years if it wasn't for the private coaches?
That's hard to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was just a general question. Because I know there's a lot of private coaches here in Milwaukee. I mean, even though we're in Chicago right now.
Well, I coached... I had the greatest percentage of success in my skaters in 2010 with Nancy, my daughter Nancy Jr., who made the Olympic team, and Brian Hansen, who made the Olympic team, the amount of success they had was higher than any U.S. coach, and I was paid nothing. Okay. And I was kept out of the rink, and I was kicked around. And there was never really sorry said. And but it just is proof to the sport not being coaching friendly and skating friendly as much as they could, and how far that would buy them success, to just have relationships and care and support and resources given to others than just the national team.
Okay.
But it's just like the government. I'm sorry, the government wants control of the people, and you will not have as much success if you don't give your people freedom. And you give your individual coaches and skaters more freedom, you will get more success. You give freedom, you get commitment. You take freedom, you get lack of commitment, you get rebellion.
And that actually...
And that's a quote, please use it.
I don't know if this is going to make it on the program, but we both know who Eva Rodansky is. And for the first time ever, I met her at the Oval just weeks ago. And it was ironic because I'm just sitting there warming up. I'm like, is that Eva? And I've never met her. And you thought I already met her. And I read her book, Winter of Discontent, and even her blog. And then there's also your blog on SOCHI, which we haven't even gotten into yet. I don't know if we're going to get into it on this podcast, but, we can always bring you back. But, when I read that book, I was completely shocked and just flabbergasted that this can easily be made into a movie. I know she was debating writing a second book, and I don't know where that ever went, but the book was riveting. I've read it several times, and I still own it. It's really hard to find. So.
No, there is a lot of truth in the book. There's also a lot of...
This is off the record now. From what Eva told me is she got threatened with a lawsuit.
Oh, yeah, by Jeff Benjamin.
I don't know who Jeff.
And right, yeah, he was a lawyer, and she said a lot of bad stuff about him. Some of it I don't think was true. Some of it was true.
I have no idea who that person even is, but I just know that she said if she wanted to fight it, it would have been. Yeah. It would have been very.
Yeah, she had to back off at that point. I tell you the truth, when I read what she said about it, it's a little questionable. Some of the things she said was questionable. Some of the things were very much wrought out of personal frustration, and probably not. It was assumptions made about people. So I would say that some of those things are the things that took credibility away from the book, but there was so much truth in the book. And I feel bad that some of the emotional hearsay things that were said, assumptions she made about people, unfortunately were to the ultimate demise of that book taken off on something.
I mean, I don't know how much truth there was to the book. I do know one thing for sure, that a lot of the people that were mentioned in that book, I know personally. Yeah. So
no, it was... The things that are... Okay, I can tell you right now. The things that sound like fact were true.
Okay.
The things that sounded like she was crazed about stuff were untrue.
Okay.
And she took a lot of stuff too personally and whatever, but understandably so. I'm a big supporter of Eva. I mean, I think she was very wrongly treated. I think that they didn't want her. She was a part of... This is off the record.
Yeah.
They didn't want somebody who was a bit of a rebel, who knew a lot of stuff, who was treated wrongly to get anything.
She's a very, very intelligent girl.
Oh, very intelligent. And
I mean, the stuff that I would... Because the stuff that she would write... Because I also went to grad school for a little bit, so I understand the whole academic and institutionality, and just the stuff that she would write about was so intelligent compared to everything else that was out there in the subject. So
so we're going back to what though that can be said about that, because we were in the middle of a sentence, but I think there was a lot of truth in the book, and then there was a lot of emotion, and that emotion was wrought of being treated unfairly and unjustly, and the treatment was very unjust towards her. Some of her assumptions about things, people could argue about whether or not those assumptions were emotional.
Should she be on the Olympic team? The bottom line,
I think
with her times.
Yes.
Okay.
I just think that she should have been taken in by the national team and thought as a great skater. And because she was in direct conflict with the national team people making it, they didn't want her. The U.S. speed skating wants the national team people to make it first because it justifies their existence. If this organization was proud of themselves, confident of themselves, and satisfied with the route that they took, they would be fine with anybody else making the team, because those people are representing the United States and they should be happy. They should not care where these people come from. And to prefer the national team over private coaches, skaters, was wrong. Now, I will say, right now, the 2 coaches on the national team are good guys. And I would not put them as a part of a lot of this stuff.
Because they changed when the administration changed
Correct.
a couple of years ago, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So, but I would say that in the past, there have been some good ones.
Okay, no, we're fine.
But I would say that the administration and some of the coaches and some of the board members contributed to the demise of ultimately SOCHI and to the demise of the alumni and the disenfranchisement of most of the ex-skaters.
Okay. I do want to talk about SOCHI, obviously, with your blog and your son's and your daughter's blog. It's up to you if you want to get into it on this time, but I want to talk about this.
Yeah, okay.
This
All
is
right.
what I want to talk about.
Okay.
But we will talk about that at a different time.
We can quickly talk about it too, but okay.
Let's talk. You want to talk about SOCHI for 5 minutes?
After this.
Okay, that's fine.
Or no, is this the right time for SOCHI?
It doesn't matter because we can always break this up any which way we want.
Okay, fine. Do SOCHI.
Okay, so SOCHI. Brian Hansen makes the team. Who else made the team from your group? Anybody else? Or just Brian?
No, I only had Brian.
Brian.
Yeah.
So I do want to get into Brian's history. I think you might be the longest running coach to coach one skater.
Yeah, I don't think anybody in the history of speed skating right now.
The only other person I can think of is Tucker with Ryan.
With Ryan, yeah, that.
Because Tucker coached Ryan, I think, for most of his career.
It could be close, and the other person internationally would be Martina Sablikova, I think. But other than that,
the Czech Republic. Okay.
But other than that, I don't think anybody has ever coached a skater for as long as I have with Brian.
So how did you meet Brian, and how did Brian get involved in skating? I mean, I'm going to interview Brian eventually, but I just kind of want you to touch on it.
Well, I was coaching a few skaters privately on the side, and
he's always been born and raised in Glenview?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, he has always been born and raised. He was born and raised in Glenview. Okay, so anyways, I was coaching some people privately, and his father had heard about me and wanted me to coach him, but I had no time, and so he waited until I...
And how old was Brian then?
At that time, he was 8 years old, and so I started coaching him, within some months of his father asking, and we just worked on technique. We worked in the hockey rink in Glen Ellen.
So was he a hockey player?
No. We worked technically on the ice during the public sessions where the disco ball was going around, and there were people,
I actually have fond memories of doing that at local hockey rinks.
Yeah. So I would sit behind him and help him and help move him in the rhythm of speed skating. And I contend that the technical, tutelage he got is what gives him his solid technique today. But also his father bought into my comments that it doesn't matter what his success is right now, Mr. Hansen, and what is important is down the road. You're not going to remember these races. If you want to stick with the sport, we got to do the groundwork right now, and that is technique.
And that's laying the foundation of a skater.
And so over the years, I think he really developed, and I think he has, of course, he's become whom he is because of a work ethic and an ability. But I contend in this sport that you don't have to be the greatest athlete in the world to be a great speed skater. Tell you the truth, I'm not sure the greatest athletes in the world will be a great speed skater. What it is someone who's got a decent amount of talent with good coaching. And because it's and then a just natural feel for balance on blades on the ice. And I think a coach...
Can you elaborate on that for the audience, just in general?
Well, you skate according to your balance or your imbalance. If you can't balance yourself correctly on a blade on the ice, you will never be a great speed skater. A lot of people try to be a skater and they never work on their balance, and they will skate according to not being able to balance on the blade. They're just always falling off of it, and you start skating according to that. If you can completely balance yourself well on a blade and have a balanced feeling on the ice, you will then skate according to your balance, and that is the most efficient.
Okay.
And that will be determined by the boot, the blade, your body, your strength, muscles, understanding of the sport. All will give you an ability to balance correctly. And some of that comes from coaching, some of that comes from natural, some of that comes from your equipment. And to put that all together is difficult, and that is why I think some people who are great athletes never find it, even though they could be great. And then some people who have extreme weird oddities about their body, it all fits together to put angles and pressure into the ice correctly, and they're great, even though they look absolutely not coordinated. It is a very weird sport in that respect, and you can work as hard as you can work harder than anybody in the world and not achieve if you are not technically efficient. And that is why when I worked with Brian, technique came first, because technique is everything. If you can get that at a young age, that will then multiply over the years, because you're able to train on a technique that was found in the beginning. And I contend with my daughter, for example. I think she's very naturally talented, but I tried to technically work with her, and I think I changed some of her natural abilities. She made the 2010 Olympic team, did take a 4th and 9th, was amazing, had a fantastic Olympics. But I also did not get to work with her at a super young age like I did with Brian.
Okay.
And then with Jeffrey, even though he was on the ice early, just because that was my babysitting, because he was with me, I didn't know what to do with him, and so he was just on the ice. But I let it because he was smart and he was an athlete. I just figured out it was just going to naturally happen. But in retrospect, I wish I had worked with a few things technically, because even though you're a talented person, sometimes you need technical advice to become the most efficient, because just a naturally great athlete is not necessarily going to be a naturally great skater.
No.
My opinion. So that's Brian. You're talking. Okay.
Before we get into it, do you want to elaborate at all on what happened in a team pursuit when the women got 4th?
Okay. Well.
So let me just go get into the question then. So Nancy, your daughter was in the Olympics in Vancouver. They took 4th in a team pursuit. How close were they to getting 3rd in medaling?
Well, the race that they did not make that 3rd was far from getting the 3rd, but the reason for them being far from it was because of a decision on a coach's part.
Okay.
I think the team definitely could have taken the 3rd. Absolutely, hands down. And in their first race of 3 of the team pursuit in the Olympics, they beat the Canadian team, which was probably the most guaranteed medal for the Canadians of any sport anywhere, was the women's team pursuit.
Really?
Should win gold.
And did they win gold?
The U.S. team beat them in the first round. Nancy,
wow.
Jen Rodriguez, and Jillian Ricard.
Right. I've known Jillian for years.
Right. So they skated the first 2, but it's a team of 4. But in order for all 4 of the skaters to get a medal, you have to have skated in one of the rounds.
Okay.
And generally speaking, they use 4 skaters somewhere in the 3 rounds. Well, Nancy and team had gotten themselves to the 3rd, 4th place round. They missed the 1st, 2nd place round. But so they were in the 3rd, 4th. They could have won 3rd.
Okay.
Well, I am a private coach. I was not asked. Nancy was not talked to. All of a sudden, the other girls in the race. This was like, when did this happen? Nobody talked to us.
Was this when she retired and came back?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the coach of the team, had talked to the skater in the morning, and I was told that she had told him she felt great. She had done an Excel, felt really good. He determined to put her in. This was more his fault than it was her fault. He is the coach. He should know. And he took Nancy out of it. And this girl didn't have a good race. And things had not been going well. Derek should have understood. I used his name. The coach should have understood. The coach should have understood that by looking and understanding where his skater was at the time, that it was not the right decision. And I feel very much jaded because, or not given. My opinion should have been taken But because this was the Olympics where my accreditation was taken away, they weren't listening to me. I would have told them to keep Nancy in because she was on a roll. Anyways, so they missed. The other girl did not do well in the race, and they were far behind. They took fourth. And within 5 minutes, I wish I had saved the text. Within 5 minutes, the coach sent me a text that said, "I am sorry." Which says it all. He knew it. You don't say you're sorry if you had no control over it. He had control over it. And he made a poor decision. And Jen Rodriguez was devastated because it was her chance for a medal, her last chance. I mean, Nancy's too. It would have changed Nancy's life in the sport to have won a medal. And so it was a big, big deal. And the USOC was furious about it. And
they
US
were in
speed
your
skating
favor?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
US speed skating as well. And again, it's not the skaters. It wasn't her problem. It was a coaching decision.
It was a management decision she had no control over.
Right. And they should have asked me my opinion on the situation. And so that was the end of that. In that Olympics, Nancy did take a 9th in the 3,000 meter, probably the best race of her life.
Were you when she came into the Olympics? What was your expectation of her, and vice versa?
Our pipe dream was top 10.
So that was a pipe dream.
And she took a 9th. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was really a pipe dream.
Was that her best race of her life?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say so. And it was a situation where I could not get into the rink that day. And I snuck.
You didn't even see her race?
Well, I snuck into the rink, and I snuck into the heat box, and I was there. And partway through the race, the police of the rink found me and dragged me out of the rink. Imagine that, because somebody from somewhere saw me there and knew I didn't have an ability to be there. I had gotten myself in, and somebody saw it, told the guards to come and take me out. This is how ridiculous.
Oh, I was going to say that I think you can still get that text back. You can, if you really wanted to.
Oh, it was on another phone. It was
No, meaning from the carrier. They have records of everything.
Oh, that'd be so great to get back.
I would call your provider to see.
I know the day, too.
Yeah, you might be able to actually get that text back. Because they have records of everything. They should have records of everything. I don't know, since it's been so long.
Yeah,
that's the only.
I want you to be careful with some of the things that I'm saying here. I'm pointing. I'm looking mean. Be careful. Then just don't.
Well, we don't actually have to have your face on. I can just do my face.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
That's the beauty about editing.
Just use the information well. Don't make me look too mean.
That's the beauty. Like when you were talking over here and going over everything, I had the audio going, so I could easily just take pictures of everything and overlay that. That's the I'm sure I look like an idiot just sitting there most of the time too. So we're back from our little break to now we're going to talk about.
Well, let's finish with.
We didn't talk about Brian and the silver medal too. Sorry.
And also in Vancouver, aside from the mishap of the girls' team pursuit, but also Nancy having a great 3,000 meter, there was also Brian's team pursuit, and there was not the expectation that they could do as well as they did, but they were in the final second place round. They took a second to the Dutch, but
were the Dutch expected to win it in this normal? Yeah,
but they were, or was it the Canadians? Ooh, let's just so there. You can edit this out. Just say, and the Americans took a second place, and there was not the expectation that they could take that second place. So it was an amazing race, and it was just like the greatest thing that happened. And
were they even expected to even get to the medal round?
It was a dream.
Okay.
But if they had not made it, it wouldn't have been like, oh, that was awful. It was just that
You must have been ecstatic.
Oh, I was ecstatic because going into it, Brian was on the team that could win a gold medal, and Nancy was on the team that could win a bronze. So it was so beyond cool. But anyways, those guys had a great race. And
then what other race was Brian in? Was it the 15?
He was in the 15. He was in the teens somewhere as far as placement is concerned.
Were you happy with his placement?
Yeah. Okay. It was good. Yes. He was still young at it.
And then Brian goes on to beat his childhood. He beat Shawnee a couple of races too. Later in his career, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to talk.
And Brian has set some lowland world records, and anyways.
He had a world record
in 1500 lowland world
for
record.
what oval?
In Inzel, 2 weeks after Sochi.
Really?
Debacle.
It's ironic that you set a world record 2 weeks after your Olympics.
That's true. Well, mine was like 4 to 6 weeks after.
I thought you said yours was 2 weeks after the Olympics in Inzel because you take like a couple weeks off.
Yeah, no, it was like 4 to 6 weeks because we had the Sprint World Championships, which I took a 4th in 1976, and then the All Around World Championships I took an 11th in, and then a week or two after the All Around World Championships came back to Inzel, and that's when I found out, interestingly, that there's a rock on the skates, and that can determine success or not. And so
you had no idea what a rock even was?
I had no idea. I skated on a factory rock that probably had hollows in it. And I did what I did, 7th place in the Olympics with that. And I was told about it. I studied it. That night, I went and played with my skates, sharpened them, and the next day I set a world record.
You literally bent your blades yourself?
Not bent, rocked them.
Rocked them. Okay.
Bending at that time, nobody bent blades.
Okay.
Not in 76.
So that was the 3,000.
Yeah.
You had another world record, and what other distance?
That was in the 10,000 meter, but that was unofficial because the women don't skate it in the Olympics, so it's considered an unofficial.
You skated the 10,000?
Yeah, that was
no idea.
Yeah, I was in a competition. In order to set a world record, you have to have 3 countries. So
represented,
it was
yeah.
So now you have the finale in Calgary, and there's a finale in Salt Lake City. And at that time, in the 70s, there was the last competition was in Svalbard, Norway, and all the skaters would go. No coaches would go. And everybody would just skate as many races as they wanted to. And
it's the last weekend of the year. No one
crazy.
Really.
Everybody went nutso. But anyways, that's where I said it.
I'm just curious what your favorite ovals were over your career.
Inzel.
Everyone says Inzel and Hamar.
Yeah.
And the Viking ship.
Yeah.
So
I agree with those.
Okay.
Well, now I will say though Heronfane.
Because I heard it's beautiful.
Oh, well, but now you don't have the outside, so you don't have the nature. Thing.
So all that's gone now? Because I've been there twice.
It's never outside. But what's gone? Yeah, what's gone? What's there now is 2 levels of windows that overlook the ice rink, and so everybody is brought into the feeling of the ice rink because it's all glass all the way around on 2 levels. All the offices, the weight room, and where the skaters can warm up, they can watch the races. It's huge. And then you've got all the offices, you've got all the, where there's food for the spectators. So the whole place is open to the rink, so you can watch skating all the time. Every office, every food stand, every spectator spot, every athlete training spot can see the ice rink. So I would say, practically speaking, it is the best ice rink in the world. And I would say Inzel's most beautiful. And I'd say Hamar is most interesting.
Why is Hamar the most interesting?
Because
it's
designed to be an upside-down Viking ship. So it's kind of cool when you look up. It's made of wood. It's
every picture I've seen of Hamar, it's just epic beauty.
Yeah, it's epic beauty. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we're going to get into some of your other skin suits from your other Olympics. So name all 4 Olympics that you were in, Nancy.
Okay, 1976, 1980, 1984, 1988.
And how old were you in your first Olympic Games?
I was 19. Okay. And this was the suit that was worn then.
I'm going to hold it up while you kind of explain it.
And it's a heavy material. It takes air. People at that time weren't, although this was the year that the first skin suit made by, and I didn't bring it in, made by Franz Kreenbull, was developed and brought in 4 days before the Olympics. So this was our Olympic suit, although I wore another one in the Olympics. But this is,
This is interesting because I've never seen a skin suit made like this before.
Well, this is how you got into it.
Yeah.
Because they eliminated the front zipper, so there was some technology going on. So you got into it that way. So there's no zipper in the front to catch air. So pretty much, there's a lot of aero going on.
And then there's Viking here. I just noticed it right now.
Yeah, I put Viking on my leg.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I put that on myself. That's Viking.
You're such an artist, you know that. And then this is kind of surprising too.
So there was some aero, thought going on into this because there are no seams in the front that are of great significance. So
just keep on talking.
Yeah. So along with this suit, this was the jacket. This is very retro now, of course, and No, there, you can't show it very well. There we go. Let's do it this way. And if you see any Olympic pictures of speed skating, the entire team was wearing this uniform. There's the back, Retro USA. And as you can see, we were well color coordinated. And it was all about patches that caught air, though. So that wasn't aero. That was 76. And 1980 was the gold skin that was created for basically because of Eric Heiden and the expectation of as many gold medals being won. This is 1984. This was Sarajevo. 1980 was Lake Placid. 1984 was Sarajevo. And the skin, there is a hood on this skin. So the skin hasn't progressed that much since 1980 to 1984.
When did they put hoods on the skin suits?
That's what I was talking about. 1976. I didn't finish that. In 1976, Franz Kriemel created a skin suit, literally skin suit, because it was like skin. And that was the beginning of the skin suits that you see for swimming, for track. But Franz Kriemel was the originator of such. And it was created and brought 4 days before the Olympics 76 in Innsbruck, Austria. I had that one for the Olympic race, although this is the suit that I wore before the Olympic race during all the competitions beforehand. So 80, 84, and the 88 skin. This was 88, I believe. And in a way, there's not a whole lot of change. I think the type of material was changing as far as being less porous, but the design was not a whole lot different. It wasn't until really the Swift skin rubberized that happened in 2010 did real advancement happen, and it has, I think, escalated quite a bit since then.
I actually have a skin suit, a modern skin suit, if you want to kind of talk about that.
Yeah. You're going to be able to take that down.
No, I don't have to take it down. So everyone knows this is actually Jeffrey Swider-Peltz skin suit, which is a modern day skin suit.
Yeah. And between 88 and, this was, since 2014.
Here, let me hold this up.
You've got the material, instead of it being porous, they've gone to rubberized because obviously the air goes around that better. And then on the bottom, there is some, porousness going on, but they need that for feeling. When you skate, if you have rubber all the way down, it's too confining. Same with the arms. There is some, it's a little bit easier, but on this arm, there's a little more movement going on with porous material because of swinging that arm, and this one not being swung as much.
Because that one's on the inner versus
yes.
the outer. Okay.
So the design of the suit is obviously not that different. It's just that you're using now material that that the wind will go right over.
And then the back of the suit.
So we then can discuss the Sochi debacle suit, but
yeah, I mean, since we're talking about skin suits, let's kind of get into Sochi.
While I have this jacket here,
sorry.
This is the 1988 the Olympic jacket.
I think my favorite jacket's the one you're wearing right now, the retro one. I just like that feel.
This is retro too,
I know. So I'm just curious, what is your favorite skin suit and look from all the Olympics that you've been in, as far as the jacket?
Well, those four, yeah.
Is it like Placid?
No, there's something nice about each one of them. Something retro about 76, and there's color, about, this one, and this is really just kind of typical American look, so there's something cool about it.
Yeah, this reminded me of the 80s.
Yeah.
So.
But then when we're talking about skin suits and the desire to...
Oh, actually, you know what? Grab one of my carbon fiber skates.
Okay.
Doesn't matter which one. You can grab that one. So this is an example of a modern day speed skate. These are my speed skates. They were handmade, Bruce Cohen boots, carbon fiber. Nancy, kind of want to take it away and kind of explain it?
You saw my clap skate, and you can insert this maybe at that time, but the clap has advanced dramatically as far as, well, I shouldn't say it's advanced dramatically, because the clap that I use, is not, granted, there's a lot more technology going on, but the effectiveness, I don't know. But they have put holes in the metal so there's less weight.
Yeah, make it lighter.
And then the type of metal of the blade is different. But of course, the advancement that's come since the first clap skate is the carbon fiber boot and the molding. That's just for your foot, which gives you better feel and control on the ice.
So if you kind of want to elaborate basically how the boots are made and whatnot, I mean, take a mold of your foot.
Yeah, it's quite involved. The mold is made.
Take a plaster mold of your foot like I did.
Right, and then the bootmaker obviously fills that mold and then makes a boot around the mold of that.
Exactly.
And so it is very much a personal boot, and for the most part, nobody else can wear it. But that's what gives you good control and feel for the ice when you have a boot that has no extra movement on the inside. When you have extra movement, then you lose perfect pressure into the ice.
It's a night and day difference. I have two different size feet, literally.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been huge. But just to give everybody an idea, it can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to get a boot made, just depending on how busy the bootmaker is. It could take longer.
It can take a year.
Yeah, it could take up to a year
because
or two.
Of being busy.
And a boot like this is, I want to say it's between $2,000 and $2,300, and the blade is right around $9,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're looking at quite a much setup. But I've had the same set of carbon fiber boots for 5 years, and they just get better with age. I mean, they're just breaking a little bit more. But no, I mean.
And that's true. And at a higher level, some of the skaters have up to 10 pair of boots in the attempt to find the boot that fits the
Which
best.
is Jeffrey.
No, he doesn't have 10, but
didn't Jeffrey have 2 different boots from 2 different?
Oh yeah, yes, right.
Sets?
He wore one
Marchese from 1 year
and one Simmons. Oh no, he wore a Kip boot for a while, Kip Carpenter boot. So he wore one Marchese and one Kip, and then he wore one Marchese and one Simmons. Then he wore 2 Simmons. Then he went back to 2 Marcheses. See, some people get on a boot and right away they find the right boot. And this to me is also a factor in being great, is sometimes you never find the right boot. And Jeffrey has an ankle issue, which is...
What happened to his ankle? I don't really know the story behind that.
He had a 3rd or 4th degree sprain of his ankle.
It just never healed right?
10 years ago. Scar tissue.
Okay.
Scar tissue formed, and he now does not get the flexion forward when he sets his left foot down, so he is very much a handicap.
Okay. And just to go back quickly, it just reminded me of something. How did I actually meet you? I don't remember.
I don't know. Negate this. I have no idea.
Well, it's kind of the point of the podcast. I don't know. I don't remember how I met you. I mean, I've seen you in the training room multiple times.
You stalked me on the internet.
I stalked you?
No, I didn't.
You don't even on Facebook.
I don't even know. I'm just being funny. You can eliminate that, please.
That's staying in for comedic value. But no, honestly, I don't remember how I met you. I'm sure it was in a training room, and then
I think we started talking about your girlfriend from Poland.
Actually, it was Kazakhstan.
I'm sorry, Kazakhstan.
I've had a girlfriend from Poland.
Okay, all right. You negate that too.
Yeah, you're not going to talk about that. Okay, so we're going to change things up and talk about SOCHIs. We came into SOCHI, I'm going to say the U.S. Speedskating came into SOCHI looking for multiple gold medals, obviously. Brittany, Heather, Shawnee. Brian was
Brian was in there.
Brian was a medal contender.
Absolutely. He set a world record 2 weeks after the Olympics.
Where was this?
Insel. So he was ready. I'm just going to say off the bat, I had him trained to take several hits, knowing that stuff happens. You get sick, you're tired, whatever. I had him trained knowing that he was doing well. Anyways, so what happened in Sochi...
Take us to before even SOCHI started. Take us to when they went to Kalabo for training, or just the whole leading up to it. Sorry.
to me, the problems of Sochi started with the mismanagement, misunderstanding, and wrong motives of the high performance program. Is that all? Did you get all that?
I got all that from you. I didn't get my reaction because that GoPro went out of.
All right, it was a good thought.
No. I got it here. It here. I'm just saying that camera went out. That's all. That's all I'm saying. How long was Brian's world record for?
I don't know.
You didn't keep it very long?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think it was at least a year.
So when you get the world record, do you get? I'm assuming you get some money from USOC, right, or something?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, perfect. Go. So
I think
Sochi.
Yeah. So I think the problem. I believe that the problems in Sochi started with an ill-conceived, wrongly motivated, high-performance plan. I was not a believer in the high-performance director. I believe that there was more a desire on the high-performance plan for personal gain than there was for what was best for all the athletes.
Okay.
The plan was manyfold, was to surprise the world with an interesting, an effective, I'm sorry, with to surprise the world with an effective skin suit that nobody knew about, with some material to rub on the skates to make the blade faster, and then some taping on the legs to possibly enhance the spring effect of your legs as you pushed. These three things were experimented with in Calabo, Italy, right before the Olympics. And the falsity of this all, how can someone educated in the sciences think that you would go to a new medium of altitude, cold, wind, whatever, and take three new things and determine if the new things were the reason why a person is going faster or not? It's absurd. So that in itself was faulty thinking and reasoning by someone who should be well educated in laboratory experimentation. And a lot of people go back to the skin suit also in its development, that it was wrongly developed in the wind tunnel, and especially by one speed skater.
They use one speed skater for the suit,
it,
correct?
Well, that is the information that I have received. I'm pretty sure that that is correct. And
okay.
The person who developed some of the idea of the skin suit itself was cut out of the deal and not finally asked for advice in the final production of the skin suit. And that person was Ted Altshuler. And he's brilliant, and he had a lot to do with the scheming of the idea, but not used in the final manufacturing. So whether or not the skin suit was a huge problem, I'm not sure anybody's absolutely going to ever find out. But the point is, it was not brought out soon enough, not experimented with soon enough. And then when there was a problem, the organization wanted to keep the suit, but my contention and what I fought for was, if the athletes don't believe in it anymore and there's been a problem, get rid of it and go with what you believe is going to work, because psychologically, if you believe what you're wearing is good, then it will perform better for you. Now, they didn't perform better when they took it off, but I still contend that it had something to do with it. But let's go back to just the faultiness of going to Calabo and experimenting The experimentation of those three things was wrong, but just going to Calabo, in my opinion, although a lot of people don't agree with me, was wrong because, but in my opinion, it was wrong because it was cold, it was windy, and it was altitude. For those who came from Salt Lake City, that's okay for altitude, but for those of us who did not, should not have gone there. For the cold and the wind, to experience that before an Olympics is exhausting, is confusing, because you can't compare times and all. And it was just too different of an atmosphere.
Okay.
The contention of the high performance director was that you're going to feel so bad there that when you get to Sochi, you'll feel that much better. Extremely faulty, not scientific, stupid.
And then there was the wrapping of the legs too, you said.
And yes, and the tape wrapping on the legs. Now, those things didn't matter except for the fact that the high performance plan was to try to give our athletes these things that they believe in their head are going to make them better, which is not a faulty idea, but the medium in which it was done and the last minute in which it was done led to frustration and a waste of time and energy. Should have been done before. Okay. As far as the skin suit is concerned, the biggest thing, the vent on the back of the suit, was experimented with by the Dutch years before, and why our high performance team did not know that is absolutely unconscionable.
They didn't know the Dutch used.
They didn't even know that, and the Dutch laughed at us. The other problem was, so you go to altitude. For the people from Salt Lake City, it's okay. For those who were not from Salt Lake City, I think that was a negative. But then the problem became this. I'm talking about taking hits. There's some problems you can take and still perform well. Mm-hmm. But then the night we left Calabo, the morning we left Calabo was like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. So you get on a bus at 4 or 5 in the morning. This is 10 days before the Olympics. You travel. You get to Munich.
What's the time difference from Calabo to Sochi?
I don't know, 5-6 hours.
Oh, so it's not.
But
big.
We weren't going to Sochi. We were going to Munich first to see BMW and to get our the issue, the clothing issue. All your Olympic stuff is given to you in Munich this time before going. That was the drop off place before you go to Sochi. So we get very little sleep that night. You travel. You get to Munich. You get all your clothing. You stand all day. You go to a sponsored dinner with BMW at night. You stay up till 11 midnight, get up at 4 in the morning to travel to Sochi.
You're doing a lot of press and PR on top of that.
So you've got 2 bad nights. You're on your legs 10 days before the Olympics. Stupid. You've got a high performance team that works 4 years for something, and you blow it with that on top of the mistakes in Sochi, in Calabo. Okay. So your athletes are somewhat tired. You get to Sochi, and the transportation was not good.
I read that in the papers.
Right. The Dutch already had a slew of bikes. The Americans had to finally figured it out when we got there. Why did we send a team to Sochi ahead of time and not figure this out like the Dutch did? Are the Dutch that much smarter than us? This is high performance. This is not even high performance. This is low performance. This is just logic. We didn't even have, and so the skaters were walking a lot. Yes, there was bus transportation, but they ended up walking a lot. They got tired. So all of those things combined.
There's a cumulative effect there.
Is a cumulative effect.
Okay.
And they were high performance decisions that could have easily been avoided. Why? Now people will say, well, the Dutch went to Calabo, and U.S. team members who were in Torino, they went to Calabo before Torino and had success. But you can argue that. For me personally, the athletes who were not in altitude did not come from altitude. It was negative. But for those athletes, has it not been going?
No, it's been going the entire time. Everything's been going.
So for those athletes who did not come from altitude, I think Calabo was not right. But any way you look at it, the cold and the wind and the disruption to your training program and the frustration of all the experimentation was so negative. I think that had a lot to do with it. There's one other factor that people will say, Nancy, you can't say this stuff, but I observed it because I watch how people train. This is how I learn. I believe that the U.S. national team, because of the schedule of the Fall World Cups coming back to Salt Lake City, and then having to miss a training block and go into the U.S. Olympic team trials where it was a one-shot deal. Nobody was guaranteed a spot until that.
That's right. That's the first time I ever did it because of all the media.
Everybody had to be their very best. So they lost a training block right before that, had to skate the Olympic trials, did pretty well, even though that lost training block was there, but they were tapering out too much. After the Olympic trials, they couldn't get on the ice because of the short track trials. So some of the skaters were void of ice for a week. Training block was not allowed. They couldn't do the training block they needed to do. And I contend then in going over to Calabo, because of the weather and all, messed up the continuation of a training block. So they were not in the condition they should have been in. So a lot of people do contend that it was the training. And yeah, they're not wrong. But you've got so many hits now that you're taking. They did not get the training block necessary to bring their training back up to the level where they could taper, like they ended up doing in Calabo, which was unexpected because of the weather and all. Mm-hmm. And then going into completely different weather into Sochi, warm and moist and whatever. All of those things should have been taken care of. All of those things should have been taken care of by high performance. This is what this person was paid for. This is what the high performance team was paid for, is to make smart decisions. All of these things combined together, you can't take that many hits. Each one of them in itself was not the problem. It was everything. Yeah. But I would say, I'll almost say that the training blocks was probably the biggest. Brian and I did not have the training block problem. He was prepared. He was ready. But
2 weeks later, it set a world record.
Correct. And he was on. He was so on. But the altitude, I believe, was a problem. A lot of people would disagree with me. Our training in Calabo went well, but you still had the weather factor that took a toll. The traveling, that late night stuff, I think took a toll on us. The walking around in Sochi took a toll. And
health-wise, was Brian 100%?
No, I think he was a little bit off too in that respect. But we could have taken that hit if we didn't have the other hits. The other thing was this. And this would have been this would have answered the question for everybody. I did not want to go to Calabo. I fought with the high performance
I remember this.
And I fought with him up until 3 days before we left. He wanted me to come 3 days earlier. I fought for those 3 days because I wanted to finish our training block before I came. But I had asked 3 other members on the team to go to Insel with me and not go to Calabo, because Insel was where most of the other skaters went to. Those skaters had said yes before, and then weeks before, when the plane tickets were being made, said no. And I was under I would have still gone to Insel, but several people were under pressure to make the decision to go with the team. And I think it was the big mistake. We should never have felt pressure. We should have done our own thing. Privately coached, Brian and I should have done what we felt was best. And what I knew was best was to go to Insel, where you had similar temperature, a little altitude.
Because Insel's only, a couple thousand feet? And
500.
So, okay.
And the altitude didn't matter there. So it was a great training situation. We would have avoided all the negative late traveling. We wouldn't have had the cold weather or the wind. We wouldn't have had the experimentation with the suit and the taping and the skate blades. I would have been able to continue my training as I wanted to, and I contend we could have taken the hit of Brian being a little physically off, and maybe he was physically off because of the weather in Calabo. It would not have happened. But I have some very resentful feelings about the people who did not go to Insel, who had originally said that they would, and I believe for them it would have made a difference for them as well. Okay. And I just think that in my gut feeling, I know the factors that can contribute to a perfect build-up to the most important race of your life. And not that the high performance directors shouldn't know that, or that other people shouldn't know that. It's just that a plan was made, they followed it, even though at the last minute I know that some of the coaches on the U.S. team didn't want to do it. I just am very resentful because I, as a private coach, should have been able to make that decision for myself, and I was forced I was disallowed in making that decision for what was best for us, because this is a free world. We should have been able to do what we wanted to do. And I contend that had we been able to do that, more likely than not, we would have had greater success, and then we would have been able to compare the people who did not follow the U.S. misguided high performance plan. We could have had that comparison to what they did as compared to not going to Kalabo, going to Insel. And then we would have eliminated a lot of factors. Anybody can argue with me. You can beat me down as much as you want. I contend that it would have been the perfect sign, or not sign, that would have been the perfect answer to what went wrong in Sochi had we been able to have a completely different situation that was successful. I say it would have been successful. People laugh at me and say you're nuts, Nance.
Well, everyone's entitled to their opinion, as I like to say. It seems like to me everything you said is once they kind of lost that mental edge,
Mm-hmm.
that was one of the major factors, because it's almost like you don't think you are, you know you are. I mean, if you come in thinking you're going to win and all of a sudden you keep on getting these hits, as you kind of explained, taking hit after hit after hit, and the mental one is the big one. So if you don't think you're going to win, you're not going to win.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So what you can do is, if you have time, you can go back to my Sochi blogs.
I read them.
And insert some
I
of
did
that
read
if
them.
you want to.
Yeah. I mean, I can pull some quotes out of there.
Right.
So, so what are your, if you just want to wrap up Sochi in maybe a couple of words, how many medals, if the U.S. would have been on, everything would have been great, everything, the training block would have went perfect or close to perfect, what do you think we could have pulled out on Sochi? Brian could have potentially got a gold medal.
I think he could have gotten 2 medals, 1 gold. I think Shawnee could have gotten 1 or 2 medals.
Shawnee would have got his 3rd gold then.
Yeah. I think
potentially.
The girls could have pulled off.
In the team pursuit?
No.
No?
I think the individual Heather and Brittany could have pulled off 1 to 3 medals.
Each?
No, together.
No, total. Okay. And then the Dutch just cleaned house.
And they cleaned house because I believe their high performance plan was correct. I think they planned for the Sochi situation better. I think they were on the continent, and that was easier with the travel and time and everything. I just think they made better. You know what? It was a lot of little decisions. They didn't have to do anything major. They just didn't make any bad decisions. And their guys were, I think they didn't miss any training blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And everything just, worked together for them because they were, like I said, on the continent. They, I think, their plan was better.
Were you completely shocked of how many medals they won?
No.
No, not at all.
I think that I just think that they understood the situation better than anybody, which is exemplified. It sounds stupid, but it was exemplified in the fact that they had a slew of bikes when they got there. They did their homework. That's a small thing, but they did their homework. And we sent a team over to study Sochi, and they didn't figure that out. What'd they go for? What did they figure out? Absolutely zippo.
And being to Holland twice, if most people don't understand this across the world, there are bikes literally everywhere in Holland. That's right. How you get around town.
But that's just an indicative. I'm saying it wasn't the bikes, but it was indicative of decision making.
It's the fact they didn't have orange bikes, right?
Right, they had orange bikes.
So we've covered a lot today, Nancy. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you maybe thought about we should cover? Whether
there's
the
a lot
Olympics?
that we didn't cover, but
there's
we're
a
not
lot
going
we
to
didn't
keep covering it right now.
Maybe a couple things you still wanted to cover. I mean, I'm going to bring you back as what I call a friend to the show, because I think we're going to have you back again.
Do you have one other question that you thought, if you want to cover it? I don't know what you might want to.
Do you want me to look at the questions real quick? I can just skim them.
Hurry up. I said I'm not going to be here past like 3.
The art of a champion, everybody.
4 o'clock! What's your problem? Put that on.
Oh, I think this is a good one to kind of wrap it all up. What is the biggest life lesson that skating has taught you? Or just the mentality to training, you know, does that make sense? Like,
What's
because
the biggest life lesson?
we're doing the same thing over and over a day. You know, it's almost like you do the laundry every single day. It's the same thing every day. It's a monotony sometimes of training. But what is maybe the biggest life lesson that skating has taught you? Maybe to persevere, to fight.
Well,
That's what I mean by that.
I got the persevere to fight from my family. I don't think
Yeah,
skating
you're an
really
A-type
taught
of personality.
me. Yeah, I don't think that, you know, taught me anything in particular. You know what? It's going to sound not okay. It continued my understanding that of persevering, not understanding my teaching me to be okay. Skating continued teaching me perseverance, which I got from my family.
Okay.
So it wasn't really anything new that speed skating taught me. And I'm going to say something which isn't probably really good. It's kind of sad. But it taught me that people disappoint you. And I would say that I've probably been more hurt by people in this sport than made happy by. And that is because I was always on the fringe, always on the side, fighting for justice. And I think if you talk to people who that tends to be their mantra in life, to help people make things fair. In addition to, yeah, I'm trying to pursue something personally, trying to win a medal, you know, and that's a selfish thing. I understand that. But in the process of it all, I did give a lot. And I'm probably the only, I am the only Olympian who has coached for 30 years a club, which is development. No matter what, I have stuck with the Parker Speed Skating Club and coached. So I have given a lot back that I don't feel I ought to, because the sport itself did not give me, and I hate to use that word give me, I had no expectation of it giving me anything, but a lot of people want to give back because they were given. But the organization, to me, took more than anything.
Okay.
But that was because I coached myself as an athlete making Olympic teams. I wasn't a part of the organization.
You didn't have a coach?
No. My brother helped me.
Okay.
Did football programs to make the Olympic team in '76. And then as a coach, I've been on the side. And to me, the lesson that the organization should learn is that you get freedom, you get commitment. Don't force people to be a part of the program. Embrace those who are a part, because they can only help you. And I'm disappointed that they never learned that. I should say never. I would say possibly learning it now.
Okay.
But it's too late in a way for me.
Well, you know, I think to myself, you know, I can sit there and go to a different country with you to an oval and walk in, and you just get like this ultimate respect because of
I will say that I am respected everywhere except for U.S. speed skating. And if they might say, no, Nancy, we do respect you, maybe so, but not in the way I'm treated. And that, you know, and people will say, well, Nancy, you badmouthed us. Well, I did. At SOCHI, I did, because it was really, really wrong. Something was stolen from us that should not have been. We should never have been told.
It's just not
what
one
to
athlete.
do.
There's multiple athletes.
Correct, yeah. And we were not a part of the organization, so we should not have had to do what the organization did. So that was wrong in itself. So, you know, I can look on it and yeah, people say, well, you can be bitter and it can wreck your life. And yeah, in a way it has wrecked my life, but your life is what you make it. And you have to turn it around into something good. I understand that. But it's been a struggle.
Okay. So any advice for this is one thing we didn't touch upon too, is for people that want to or continue into the sport or have this track to get to the Olympics, whether it's going on a club level, you know, they have a dying passion for the sport, or they want to continue on the path, just in general for skating. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's kind of one thing I want to touch upon too, like, you know, what it takes to get to the Olympic level, what it takes to be a Brian Hansen or, you know, or Jeffrey or Nancy Jr.
The most important thing is to
hard How many years of a commit? I mean, we're looking for.
Oh, it depends. You can be great in 2 years. You can be great in 10 years.
Okay.
It depends on the person. If your body is really made for the sport, if you find the right boot, if you get the right coach, and everything works out well, you can be good quickly. But I think you need to figure it's a long haul because it's an odd sport and it's something where you have to find the right boot. You got to find the right technique. And sometimes it takes time to.
There's a lot of variables that go into that end equation.
So it could take a long time, but if you love the sport and you like the competition and it fits into and make it fit into your life, just accept the fact that it could take a long time, but the rewards ultimately in the end could be great. But they could also not be great. That's the gamble of sport.
That's the gamble of life.
It's a gamble of life.
Yeah.
But I will say this though, this is probably the biggest thing, is that if you survive this sport, you will survive life. And a lot of people think sport is just a game, and get on with life and get on with doing the real thing in life, that's living. It's like your life will seem relatively easy if you survive long term in this sport, because of the ups and downs and the frustrations of competition, success, and then the frustrations of the organization itself.
I mean, being a master's athlete myself, just the frustrations of being injured. I mean, I had some lymphedema issues with a blood clot and coming back and whatnot, and just the ups and downs of training, everyday life, being sore. It's everything. It's a traveling. It's a combination of everything. But I have certain goals in the sport that I want to achieve at 41 years old, which is, I want to be there at U.S. Olympic Trials, racing the 500, and seeing me cross you. You know what I mean? I mean, I almost want to choke up right now, but for you to know me for this long, that's my personal goal. And then maybe have to go some masters records. But I didn't start skating until I was a lot older, but I played hockey for a long time. So I want to see what my potential is. And I'm very happy that, you've seen me grow over the years as a skater, just as a person, as a skater, and that you're the first Olympian, true speed skater to be on the program. And that's the reason why you got Apple Crisp. You will be getting more, but
better get it every week.
It's $100 an ounce after this weekend.
It's what?
$100 an ounce.
$100 an ounce.
It was the first part is free, but no, I really appreciate you coming. Seriously, I really appreciate you coming onto the program. I don't know where this is going to go, everybody in YouTube land. Hopefully, it goes somewhere.
Hopefully, what you put on doesn't make me out to be.
And hopefully I don't look like an idiot. Hopefully we do. Let's just look at the camera. Hopefully we don't look like idiots here. But no, I had no idea what to expect today. The fact that, just so everyone knows, Nancy brought a ton of stuff. She brought a ton of pictures. I'm going to be taking pictures of everything, throw it onto the website. I just appreciate your time. Just to thank you. I'm going to give you a hug.
Okay. Thank you for wanting to promote the sport.
Yeah, and this goes back to when I approached you. You're like, I just hope you go through with it.
Yeah.
This is our third program. I'm hoping we have. I can't wait to get Brian here and Nancy and Jeffrey and talk about their experiences. But I just wanted to touch a little bit upon everything. Good. Is there anything we didn't cover that you felt?
Yes, there's a lot of stuff, but I think that's it for now.
No, I mean for the time being. I mean, are you happy with what we covered?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that was good. Okay. Actually, I would say each segment, I wish I could have gone more in depth. But
remember I told you we can literally be here for 5 hours talking.
Yeah.
I mean, you have we could talk for an hour in each Olympics, each race.
Right.
So any closing thoughts for the audience? So any closing thoughts?
Yes, I think the Olympics is a really cool goal. And I think that any kid listening or any person listening or any adult listening
or
watching. Well, I'm sorry. Okay. Yes, I think that any person watching this who has logical, reasonable Olympic aspirations should try, because too many people are pressured to, quote, move on in life or to take the route that is typical. And the Olympics is a really different thing and really special if you can make it. And if you have the propensity or the talent or the resources or whatever to possibly achieve an Olympic team in whatever sport it is, to try. because it's so unique. And I will say the fun thing that I have derived from all of this is to be able to say I'm an Olympian. And
A four-time
Olympian. And I think, just another thought in my head, I believe that my father in the 70s knew that women didn't have a lot of opportunity yet, although it's starting. And I think he wanted me to have something as a female in this world that gave credibility. And I think that's why he was so behind it and so excited and so proud of me, knowing that this would carry with me the rest of my life and mean something, not only to me, to others, but to my kids as well.
I know you're the first woman, is it in U.S. history, to be in four
Olympics, yes.
Okay.
Winter Olympian.
Winter Olympian. So other people have done it in the summer, I'm assuming, then?
Yes.
Okay. But you were the first woman.
I think one or two women had done it before me in the summer games. But
And you still hold that record?
No, I think there's a 5-time. I think
is it Dana or Torres?
Torres. That's in summer.
I'm sorry, that's summer.
But Peterson did it in short track speed skating. She did 5. I just missed a 5th and a 6th by a spot. But
and you did beat your daughter at trials too.
Yes. Well, that's the other thing we didn't talk about.
That's for another program. That's for another program.
I raced against my daughter at the 2002 Olympic trials. I was the oldest at 45. She was the youngest at 14. And I beat her in the 500 meter. I went to the line. We were paired together, interestingly. I went to the line, walked over to her, or skated over to her, gave her a kiss, and we started the race. I beat her, but she beat me ever since after that.
Yeah, but that's got to be a special moment.
Yeah, that's cool. Because we have pictures you'll show of her being with me at the 1988 Olympics, my 4th Olympic team, and then I raced against her in the 2002 Olympic trials, so that was kind of cool. Okay. There's pictures in there.
Okay. Well, Nancy, like I said, it was great to have you on the program.
Right.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
As I say, everybody, I got to redo this later, but any day on the ice is a good day. If you guys want to come down to the Pettit Center, say hi to Nancy or myself. We'd be more than happy to have a quick conversation and show you guys around the oval. You guys have a great day, a great afternoon, and thank you for your time. Bye, everybody.
I mean, like always with me, it's not good. I would say 50% of that was negative. So figure it out.
I'm going to do one other thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the camera up this way and face this down. I'm just going to have you talk about that. But I'm going to put it right there.
Okay.
That's all.
Tell me when you're ready.
Can you move my skate for me? It's almost like a big giant game of operations.
Well, do you want this to be up a little bit?
Putting an angle like that on it right now, that might not be a bad idea.
Is it ready?
1 second here.
So will I take this one back with me, or are you going to keep it still?
No, I'm gonna keep it.
Whoa. Let's knock that down.
How far is Wheaton from here?
40 minutes.
Okay. So just so you know, I'm just gonna have you out of frame, kind of talking about everything.
Yes.
Because if you put your head on
Yes.
top.
Yeah. I'll just point.
Okay, so we're back to the part of the program where Nancy's going to explain what you guys are seeing right now. Nancy, you kind of want to explain what this is?
Yes. This award was when I set the world record in the 3,000 meter in 1976. That was the award given, and this is the medal that was given. 4 years later, I won the same competition, but it wasn't a world record in 1980. And the next year 4 years later, 1984, I won it again, but it was not a world record set. I just put that in there because that was the patch from the 1976 Olympics that was worn on the front of our uniform, I believe. Then when you make the Olympic team, you get watches and rings. This was the watch that we received in 76 and 80 and 88. These are the rings I received in 1980 and 1984. And also when I set my world record, Jaap Havicoat, who is the man who manufactures the skates that I used, he picked me up at the airport in Amsterdam, brought me to his factory, and gave me a diamond in a skate. He gave me this old skate from before 1900.
So that's approximately 1800s?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I put also in this was the national championship that I won in 1975, the year before I made my first Olympic team. People like to see what awards you've received. These are just a scattering of some of them that I had put into a box for another situation that had asked for it. All of these are pins from between 1976 and 1988, I believe. Pin collecting during the Olympics is a huge deal. Some people come just to do that.
Yeah, I've heard
pins.
These people are like the Disney people that I know.
Right, people go crazy, and these were ones that my husband collected, I believe, or traded in 1984 and 1988.
We're not going to go over each individual pin. We can maybe do that at a future point in time. I think the pin collection community, especially the Olympic community, would really appreciate that. Yeah. But not today. So if you maybe want to pick out 4 or 5 of your favorite pins, or maybe the top 5 or 6 that really mean something to you, or are very significant, or even a great pin trading story.
Oh, well, the great pin trading story is little Nancy was 9 months old at that Olympics, and she was with me, and we would push her around in the stroller. She had an Olympic sweater on with the rings. Everybody thought she was cute, and they would always pin their pin on her sweater. Well, and we would collect about 10, and then we would take them off and keep going and get 10 more, and take them off and keep going and get 10 more. So that's how we collected a lot of pins that year, because everybody thought my daughter was cute, and so they'd give her a free pin. Instead of having to trade for them, we got them free.
Because I know it's all based on the trade per se.
Yeah. So anyways, I have always loved the USA one with the Olympic rings. That's always been my favorite, this one right here. And the Sarajevo, the typical pen was right here, that stick pen from Sarajevo. I always remember that one right here. Some of their scattering here, like ABC, because they, each organization that was there brought their own pen. The Japanese one, don't know if you can see it. It's a flag on a speed skate. I think is so cool down here. That's the Olympic pen from Calgary that the U.S. had. There's an ABC pen that was supposedly worth huge amount of money at some point. Yeah, here I think this one was worth a lot at one point.
The ABC guest one?
Yeah. Oh, but that, that was a Los Angeles one.
Yeah, that looks like 84.
Somehow, somehow we collected that one.
Remember the stars from Los Angeles?
Yeah. Yeah. Then there were a few retro pens that went flying around. This is a retro pen. I don't know. Salt Lake 2002.
I think that's about wraps it up. So what I'm going to do then is eventually take pictures of all this stuff and put it all in like the overlay of when you're speaking, Nancy. I think that's going to be the best thing. Okay. Any closing thoughts on this?
Awards are always the tangible evidence of work done, but have never been a huge part of my thoughts about competition and all. But it's fun to show people items because it helps them to relate to the reality of the fact that it did happen.
Okay. So the memories of your life.
Yeah, but to me, in here, the coolest thing, though, the memories-wise, was setting the world record and receiving this old skate from the guy who created the skates.
That's actually my favorite thing in there is that clap. Is that skate?
Yeah.
It's not even a clap skate. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, it's far from a clap skate.
Fantastic.
Right?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, you're in charge.
It's a wrap.
Okay, do you leave the skates as well, correct?
Well, you're training tomorrow, right?
No, well, no, I'm taking my skates. You want these old skates?
Yeah, I'm gonna take pictures of them.
Okay. So, let's see, that was that skate, this skate. Okay, the pictures, I'll figure out the pictures. Just look them all.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah,
Nancy.
I think. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You're like, I want to leave. Okay, so what are you taking right now that you need to take?
I'm not taking it. That bag is for the clothes, for the
Okay.
book, and for the skates, and for the skin, and the flag.
Okay.
So you have the wooden thing, the poster, and all the other stuff should go into here.
Okay.
Okay?
Is somebody gonna be home tomorrow?
I won't, but you can just, when you're getting there, let me know, and Jesse, you can come home and get it. Okay? It's no problem.
Wait, Jeff's gonna be there?
Well, he's, Wheaton College is a few minutes away. He'll just run
Oh, your
home.
other son.
My husband.
Oh, your husband.
Jeff Sr.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know your husband's name was Jeff.
Yeah, we've got Jeff and Jeff Jr. and Nancy Jr. And then my other son is John Jeff. Jeff, and John Jeff.
And John. You're gonna let the Kennedys hear it.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry if I was a little bit disorganized, but I had to scramble at the last minute because of what happened. Are you happy with what happened?
Yeah. I wish I could be more positive. I'm always negative, but.
You know what? We can always. I can edit that a lot too. I mean,
Yeah,
like.
but I think that there's some reality in it all that a lot of.
But that's
people
one of the
like.
reason why I wanted to do this. That's
Yeah.
why it's called a narrative life
Yeah.
experience. Life isn't fucking beautiful
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Well, that's what you can say sometimes too.
Yeah, I mean,
to
like-
say that's not. That comment that I've not had great experiences. I've had a lot of sadness.
Like the one question I did want to ask you, which I didn't ask, I can ask next time, was what was your biggest failure and what did you learn from that, for example? I mean, that can be for another time.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, I mean, I'd like to have you back, obviously. The good thing is if I want to get this audio up, I can get it up.
Why don't you bring your guy and come to our house and you can get all three of us?
Exactly.
Okay?
And then you can kill him, and I can bring you a full person.
A lot easier.
I know.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is just fucking amazing. $25 gift card. I said, fuck that.